Have you ever paused, in a moment of quiet solitude, and listened to the chorus of voices within your own mind? Not the noise of the day, or the endless to-do lists, but the deeper currents, the subtle nudges, the persistent whispers that guide your hand, and sometimes stay your hand. Have you ever felt the pull of a familiar role? A pattern of behavior that feels both intimately yours and yet strangely foreign. We find ourselves playing parts we never consciously auditioned for. The eternal people pleaser, the silent rebel, the relentless perfectionist, never quite understanding the script or who wrote it. Many of us walk through life feeling adrift, guided by these invisible currents, wondering why we react the way we do, why we fear the things we fear, and why we yearn for a home we can't quite describe. We feel the faint echo of a story unfolding within us, a myth being lived out, but we remain unaware of its plot. The truth is, these are not random impulses or personal quirks. They are the voices of the archetypes, the ancient, universal patterns of energy that reside in the collective unconscious of all humanity. They are the blueprints of the soul, the foundational characters in the epic drama of your life. The innocent, the orphan, the warrior, the magician. These powerful forces shape our desires, inform our decisions, and color our perception of the world. To be ignorant of them is to be a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the powerful, unseen tides of our own inner world. We mistake their whispers for our own singular thoughts, their vast, ancient stories for our small, personal dramas. And so, we remain trapped, playing a single, repeating role, when we were meant to embody the entire cast. This journey, this audiobook, is your invitation to turn inward, to finally meet these powerful figures who reside within. It is a map to the vast, undiscovered country of your own psyche. We will not merely talk about these archetypes as dry, intellectual concepts. We will bring them to life. We will listen to their stories, understand their light and their shadow, and learn how to integrate their wisdom and their power through the immersive experience of this audiobook. You can absorb these truths while you move through your day, allowing the narrative to seep into your subconscious, to awaken the sleeping giants within. This is a journey to meet your inner guide, not as a single, benevolent voice, but as a council of wise, ancient beings who have been waiting for you to simply turn your attention inward. And listen, the adventure begins now. We begin our journey with the first, and perhaps most foundational archetype, the one that whispers to us from the very dawn of our consciousness. It is the voice of pure, untarnished potential. Before the world taught us caution, before experience taught us skepticism, there was a state of being, a garden state of the soul, where trust was our native language and hope was the very air we breathed. This is the realm of the innocent. Think back to a perfect childhood moment, real or imagined. A feeling of absolute safety in a parent's arms. The boundless wonder of seeing the ocean for the first time. The unwavering belief that goodness will always triumph and that every story has a happy ending. This feeling, this deep, cellular memory of paradise, is the core of the innocent archetype. Its fundamental desire is to remain in, or return to, this state of safety, harmony, and unconditional love. The innocence motto is simple and profound. The world is good, people are trustworthy, and everything will be okay. In its positive, luminous expression, the innocent is a powerful and healing force in the world. An individual, guided by the light of this archetype, possesses a remarkable resilience, not born of strength in the warrior sense, but of an unshakable faith. They are the optimists who can find the silver lining in the darkest of clouds, the friend who offers unwavering belief in you when your own has faltered. Their presence can feel like a balm, soothing the cynical, world-weary parts of those around them. They see the world not through rose-tinted glasses, but through a lens of possibility. They are naturally inclined to forgive, to give second chances, and to believe in the inherent goodness of humanity, even when presented with evidence to the contrary. This is not foolishness in its highest form. It is a spiritual practice. It is a choice to focus on the potential for love and connection over the potential for harm and betrayal. The energy of the innocent fuels our dreams, our highest aspirations for a better world, a peaceful society, a loving family. It is the part of us that falls in love, that starts a new venture with boundless enthusiasm, that believes in the promise of a new day. Without the innocent, we would be paralyzed by cynicism, unable to take the leaps of faith necessary for any form of growth or creation. Perhaps the most iconic story of this Archetypes journey is that of Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy begins in a world that is literally black and white, a Kansas landscape that is safe but drab, when the tornado, a force of chaos, rips her from this home. She is thrust into the vibrant, beautiful, and dangerous Technicolor world of Oz. Her entire motivation, from the moment she lands, is the innocent's primary drive to return to paradise, to get back home. She is not seeking power, or wealth, or adventure for its own sake. She simply wants to return to the safety of what she knows. And how does she navigate this treacherous new world? Through the pure, unadulterated power of the innocent. She is told to follow the yellow brick road, and she does so without question. Her trust is absolute. She meets a scarecrow who longs for a brain, a tin man who longs for a heart, and a cowardly lion who longs for courage. A more cynical traveler might see them as flawed, useless companions. But Dorothy, in her innocence, sees only their desire, their goodness, their potential. She doesn't judge them for what they lack. She embraces them for who they are and invites them on her quest. It is her unwavering faith and simple, heartfelt compassion that forges their bond and gives them the strength to face the wicked witch, who represents the terrifying, cynical, and destructive reality that the innocent most fears. The witch tries to intimidate her, to harm her. But Dorothy's simple, uncalculated reactions, fueled by a desire to protect her friends, ultimately lead to the witch's demise. The story's greatest revelation, however, is the ultimate lesson for the innocent, the great and powerful Oz. The magical figure she believed would solve all her problems is revealed to be a fraud, a man behind a curtain. Her faith in an external savior is shattered, but in that moment of disillusionment, she is given the true key by Glinda, the good witch. She is told, "You've always had the power to go back to Kansas. The magic wasn't in the wizard, or the Emerald City, or even the ruby slippers themselves, but in her own belief. She had to learn for herself that the safety and paradise she sought were not things to be granted by another, but a state of being she could access from within. Her journey was a process of integrating her innocence with experience, to realize that her inherent trust and goodness were her true power all along. But every archetype has a shadow, a dark side that emerges when its energy is misaligned or underdeveloped. The shadow of the innocent is not evil, but it is profoundly self-destructive and can inadvertently cause harm to others. The innocent's beautiful trust, when untempered by wisdom, curdles into dangerous naivete. The desire for a perfect, safe world becomes a stubborn refusal to see reality as it is. This is the person who stays in a toxic relationship, insisting their partner will change. This is the employee who ignores blatant signs of corruption in their company, clinging to the idealized mission statement. They engage in a form of willed blindness, a toxic positivity that denies the existence of real problems, real pain, and real danger. Their fear of confronting a harsh reality is so great that they would rather live in a fantasy, often becoming frustrated and confused when the world doesn't conform to their idealized expectations. This naivete makes the innocent a prime target for exploitation. Manipulators, con artists, and emotional predators are drawn to the innocent's trusting nature like sharks to blood. The innocent projects their own goodness onto others, assuming everyone is operating from the same place of sincerity. They cannot fathom deception, and so they miss the red flags that a more discerning eye would see. They are the ones who fall for the get-rich-quick schemes, who give their hearts away to those who will only break them, who are repeatedly let down because they place their faith in unworthy vessels. The shadow innocent doesn't just get hurt once. They often get caught in a repeating cycle of betrayal and disillusionment, because they never learn to integrate the lesson that not everyone is trustworthy. The deepest shadow, however, manifests when the innocence bubble is finally and brutally burst. When the evidence becomes so overwhelming that their denial can no longer hold. The fall from grace is catastrophic. The world they believe to be safe and good is revealed to be dangerous and indifferent. This shattering can lead to one of two paths. The first is a regression into a state of learned helplessness. The fallen innocent becomes a permanent victim, paralyzed by fear, unable to make decisions, and desperately seeking a new, stronger figure, a parent, a partner, a leader to restore their sense of safety. They want to return to the womb, to give up their autonomy in exchange for protection from the scary world. The second path is a violent swing to the opposite pole, deep, bitter cynicism. The betrayed innocent can become the most hardened of skeptics, trusting no one, believing in nothing, seeing only the negative in every situation. Their former paradise becomes a wasteland, and their open heart slams shut, encased in a prison of bitterness to ensure it can never be hurt again. So, how do we honor the gift of this archetype without falling into its shadow? The goal is not to kill the innocent within us, for to do so would be to lose our capacity for joy, hope, and wonder. The goal is integration. It is the journey from naive innocence to wise innocence. Wise innocence is the ability to see the world in its totality, to acknowledge the darkness, the corruption, the pain, and the potential for betrayal, and yet to still consciously choose to act from a place of trust and hope. It is optimism, fortified with discernment. It is an open heart protected by healthy boundaries. The integrated innocent learns to listen to their intuition. They don't dismiss that small, nagging feeling that something is off, just because they want everything to be perfect. They learn to differentiate between an open heart and an unguarded one. They can offer compassion without offering up their entire being for consumption. They understand that true safety does not come from an external paradise or a perfect protector, but from an internal foundation of self-knowledge and self-trust. They embody the wisdom Dorothy learned. The power is within. They can face the harsh realities of the world without becoming jaded. They can look at the wolf and see it as a wolf, not as a misunderstood sheep, and yet still believe in the goodness of the flock. This integrated state is one of immense power. It allows for deep connection, profound joy, and an unshakable inner peace, because it is no longer dependent on the world being perfect. This archetype is our foundation, our starting point, but for almost everyone, the pure, unbroken paradise of the innocent is, by necessity, a temporary state. Life happens. The tornado arrives. The walls of the garden, whether through a personal loss, a betrayal, or simply the harsh realities of growing up, inevitably crumble. We are cast out of our Eden. And in that moment of disillusionment, when we look around and realize that we are alone in a world we no longer recognize, a new archetype is born from the ashes of our lost paradise. This is the experience that leads us directly into the realm of our next guide. It is the feeling of being left behind, of having to find our own way in a world that suddenly feels cold and unfamiliar. It is the journey of the orphan. When the walls of the garden fall, when the paradise of the innocent is shattered by the harsh, undeniable truth of reality, we are cast out. The first feeling is not anger, or even sadness, but a profound and terrifying sense of cosmic aloneness. The ground that was once solid beneath our feet has given way to an abyss. The unconditional safety we took for granted is gone, replaced by a chilling vulnerability. This is the threshold we cross, willingly or not, into the domain of the orphan archetype. The orphan is the part of us that experiences the world from a place of fundamental loss, while its most literal manifestation is the child who has lost their parents. Its psychological reach is far broader and more universal. You can be an orphan in a crowded room, in your own family, in a marriage. The wound is triggered by any experience that severs our primary bond of safety and belonging. Whether it's the divorce of our parents, a deep betrayal by a trusted friend, the subtle but persistent feeling of being the black sheep, or the simple, painful realization that no one truly can ever fully understand the landscape of our inner world. The core wound of the orphan is abandonment, and its primary quest is for belonging. The world, for the orphan, is divided into two groups, the insiders and the outsiders. The insiders are the ones who seem to have it all figured out, the ones sitting around the warm campfire of family, community, and acceptance. The orphan is the one on the outside, peering in, their face pressed against the cold glass of other people's happiness, yearning to feel that warmth, that effortless sense of place. This ache for connection becomes their driving force. They learn early on to be self-reliant, because they have to be. They become pragmatists, realists, survivors. They understand pain, and this understanding plants the seeds of a deep and powerful empathy, a compassion for the struggles of others that the innocent, in their protected paradise, could never truly comprehend. The orphan knows what it feels like to be left out, to be forgotten, and to be hurt. No story in our modern mythology captures the orphan's journey quite like that of Harry Potter. He is the archetypal orphan in its purest form. We meet him not just as a boy who has lost his parents, but as a boy who is actively unwanted, relegated to a cupboard under the stairs. He is invisible, a constant reminder of a world his guardians despise. His existence is defined by his lack. He is not just without a family. He is without an identity. The arrival of his Hogwarts letter is more than just an invitation to a magical school. It is the first sign in his life that he belongs somewhere, that he has a name and a story that matters. It is a lifeline thrown to the quintessential outsider, at Hogwarts. Harry's healing does not come from the magical curriculum or the grandeur of the castle. It comes from finding his tribe, in Ron and Hermione. He doesn't just find friends. He finds a chosen family, a bond forged not by blood but by loyalty, shared adventure, and mutual acceptance. They become his home. They see him. They value him. And they stand by him. This is the orphan's deepest dream made real. His journey is a masterclass in healing the wound of abandonment. He must repeatedly face Lord Voldemort, the very being who made him an orphan in the first place. He is literally forced to confront the source of his original trauma, and in doing so, he transforms that wound into his greatest strength. The scar on his forehead, a mark of his loss, becomes a symbol of his survival and a source of insight. He learns that the love he received from his parents, the very thing he lost, is the one power the Dark Lord cannot understand. He heals not by erasing his past, but by integrating it, by building a new family, and by using the pain of his abandonment to fuel his courage to protect his new home. Yet, like all archetypes, the orphan possesses a dangerous shadow, a dark reflection born of unprocessed pain. When the orphan fails to heal their wound, they can become trapped by it, and their entire identity becomes defined by their loss. This is the shadow of the victim. The victim orphan doesn't just feel abandoned. They are abandonment. They build their personality around the story of what was done to them. Every misfortune, every setback, is seen as another confirmation that the world is against them and that they are destined to be alone. This mindset is a prison of powerlessness. By constantly looking to the past and casting blame outward, the victim orphan relinquishes their ability to create a new future. They wear their suffering like a badge, believing, often unconsciously, that this is the only way to get the attention and sympathy they crave. This desperation to belong can also lead the shadow orphan down a perilous path, joining the wrong tribe at any cost. The terror of being alone is so immense that they will silence their own values, betray their own intuition, and conform to any group that offers them a shred of acceptance. This is the teenager who falls in with a dangerous crowd. The adult who stays in a soul-crushing job because they are afraid of being ostracized. The person who parrots the opinions of their clique without ever consulting their own inner truth. They will trade their authenticity for the illusion of safety. They are terrified of being cast out again, and so they will do anything to maintain their position within the group, even if it means losing themselves in the process. From this pain also grows a hardened cynicism, where the fallen innocent is shocked into bitterness. The shadow orphan develops a deep-seated, pragmatic distrust of everyone. They expect abandonment. They anticipate betrayal. To protect themselves from being hurt again, they adopt a strategy of pushing people away first. I'll leave you before you can leave me. They become emotionally unavailable, cynical about love, and suspicious of kindness. They see hidden motives in every act of generosity. This defensive posture becomes a tragic self-fulfilling prophecy. By refusing to let anyone in, they guarantee the very loneliness they so desperately fear, continually recreating the conditions of their original wound. The journey of healing for the orphan is the journey from victimhood to sovereignty. It is not about pretending the wound doesn't exist. The first and most crucial step is to turn and face the pain. The orphan must allow themselves to fully grieve the loss of safety, the lack of love, the childhood they never had. They must honor that pain, sit with it, and mourn it, without becoming consumed by it. This conscious act of grieving is what allows the energy trapped in the wound to finally be released. From there, the integration of the orphan begins with a radical act, becoming your own parent. Instead of constantly seeking rescue or validation from the outside world, the healing orphan learns to provide for their own emotional needs. They learn to self-soothe when they are afraid, to encourage themselves when they are in doubt, to celebrate their own victories, and to forgive their own mistakes. They begin to build an inner home, a sanctuary of self-acceptance and self-reliance that no one can ever take away. This is the true antidote to the fear of abandonment. When you know how to be a home for yourself, you are never truly homeless. Only from this place of inner security can the orphan finally find their true tribe. No longer desperate for any port in a storm, they can now navigate the world of relationships with discernment. They don't seek acceptance, they seek resonance. They are drawn to people who see them, value their unique perspective, and share their core values. They learn that true belonging is not about conforming to fit in, but about finding the people who love you because you are different. They build their chosen family not on neediness, but on mutual respect, trust, and the shared strength of fellow survivors who have learned to build their own homes. Once the orphan has completed this heroic journey, once they have faced their pain and built a sanctuary within and without, a profound transformation occurs. Having known the depths of loneliness, they develop an extraordinary capacity for compassion. Having longed for safety, they now know exactly how to create it. A new impulse begins to stir, a desire not just to protect their own home, but to extend that safety to others. The healed orphan, who once felt like an outcast, now looks upon the other, lost and lonely souls of the world with a deep, knowing empathy. They feel a powerful urge to help, to protect, This desire to offer the comfort they themselves once lacked is the bridge that leads us out of the lonely landscape of the orphan and into the warm, embracing arms of our next archetype. The healed survivor becomes the protector. This is the birth of the caregiver. Out of the healed wounds of the orphan, once a home has been found or created, a new and powerful impulse arises. Having known the cold, a person now wishes to provide warmth. Having known hunger, they wish to provide nourishment. Having known the terror of being alone, they wish to provide shelter and companionship. This deep, instinctual drive to protect, to nurture, and to alleviate the suffering of others is the genesis of one of the most vital and luminous archetypes, the caregiver. This is the embodiment of compassion in action. Its energy flows from the heart, motivated by a profound sense of empathy and a desire to make the world a safer, gentler place for everyone. The caregiver's fundamental purpose is to protect people from harm and to help them thrive. Their motto is the Golden Rule, expanded to its most selfless expression: I am here for you. The caregiver is the bedrock of civilization. We see it in the parent tending to a sick child, the doctor healing the sick, the teacher nurturing the potential of their students, the therapist holding space for another's pain, and the friend who shows up without being asked in a time of crisis. In its positive expression, the caregiver is a fountain of generosity and unconditional support. They create sanctuaries, spaces where people feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to fall apart, and to be put back together again. A person strongly aligned with the light of this archetype possesses an almost magical ability to anticipate the needs of others. They listen more than they speak. They offer comfort not just with words, but with their steady, calming presence. Their love is not transactional. It is a freely given gift. To be in the presence of a healthy caregiver is to feel seen, valued, and safe. They are the selfless heart of any family, community, or organization. The force that binds people together through acts of service and genuine compassion. For a profound story of the caregiver's journey, we can look beyond the obvious parental figures to a small, unassuming hero, Samwise Gamgee from The Lord of the Rings. Sam begins his journey not as a warrior or a wizard, but as a simple gardener, a tender of living things. His entire world is about nurturing and cultivating. When he is thrust into the epic quest to destroy the One Ring, his motivation is not a desire for glory or adventure, but a simple, heartfelt promise to his master, Frodo. He is there to protect, to serve, to care. Throughout their harrowing journey, Sam's actions are a continuous expression of the caregiver archetype. He is the one who remembers to pack the salt for the potatoes. He is the one who cooks and finds food when all hope seems lost. He is the one who carries the heavy gear, and eventually, even carries Frodo himself. He is the voice of encouragement in the suffocating darkness of Mordor. Sam's journey illustrates the hidden strength and the ultimate test of the caregiver. His greatest trial comes not from the monstrous spider Shelob or the armies of orcs, but from the person he is dedicated to caring for. When Frodo, poisoned by the ring's influence, turns on him, accuses him of deceit, and tells him to go home, Sam's entire world shatters. For a caregiver, to be rejected by the one they are caring for is the deepest wound imaginable. It is a negation of their very identity. A laissé personne, or a caregiver lost in their shadow, might have succumbed to despair or become a bitter martyr. But after a moment of profound grief, Samwise integrates his role. He realizes his ultimate duty is not just to Frodo's person, but to the mission itself, the act of care on a global scale. His love is so strong that it transcends the personal rejection. He follows, and it is his steadfastness, his courage born of fierce loyalty, that saves Frodo and ensures the ring's destruction. Sam shows us that the caregiver, in its highest form, is not weak or submissive. It possesses a warrior's heart, powered by the unyielding force of love and compassion. But the very selflessness that makes the caregiver so beautiful is also the source of its dangerous shadow. The path to the shadow is paved with good intentions. The desire to help, when unchecked by self-awareness, can curdle into the archetype of the martyr. The martyr caregiver gives and gives until they are utterly depleted, an empty vessel with nothing left for themselves. Their identity becomes so completely fused with the act of serving others that they lose any sense of their own needs, dreams, or desires. They neglect their health, their finances, and their own emotional well-being, all in the name of helping. The martyr's quiet mantra is, "No one ever thinks of me." Yet they will consistently refuse help when it is offered. To accept help would be to relinquish their role as the ultimate giver. Unconsciously, their suffering becomes their identity, the primary way they define their worth and solicit love and attention. From this martyrdom, an even darker shadow can emerge: the controller. The shadow caregiver can use help as a sophisticated tool for manipulation. They foster dependency in others to ensure that they will always be needed, because being needed is the only way they feel valuable and secure. Their care comes with invisible strings attached. They use guilt as a currency, wielding phrases like, "After all, I've done for you," or "Don't worry about me, I'll be fine," to control the behavior of their loved ones. They may sabotage the growing independence of their children or friends because another's strength feels like a threat to their own purpose. This shadow caregiver doesn't want to heal you. They want to manage your illness. They seek to keep others in a state of relative weakness to maintain their own position of power and perceived moral superiority. The inevitable result of both the martyr and the controller shadows is a deep, corrosive resentment. By constantly suppressing their own needs, a well of bitterness begins to fill within them. They may present a smiling, willing face to the world, but underneath, they are seething with anger at the very people they are supposedly caring for. They feel unappreciated, taken for granted, and drained. They blame others for their exhaustion, failing to see that they are the architects of their own depletion. They have willingly given away their power, their time, and their life force, and now they resent the world for taking what was so freely and foolishly offered. The integration of the caregiver archetype is perhaps one of the most challenging, yet vital, journeys of self-discovery. It requires learning a lesson that feels to the caregiver. Like the ultimate selfishness, you must learn to care for yourself first. The central truth they must embrace is that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Self-care is not an indulgence, it is a prerequisite for sustainable compassion. The first practical step on this path is the establishment of healthy boundaries. The integrated caregiver learns the power of the word no. They learn to say it without guilt, understanding that they are not a limitless resource. They learn to distinguish between supporting someone and enabling them. They realize that sometimes the most compassionate act is to step back and allow another person to face their own challenges, to find their own strength, and to learn their own lessons. This respects the autonomy of the other person and preserves the energy of the caregiver. The next step is learning to receive. The caregiver, who is so comfortable with giving, is often deeply uncomfortable with being on the receiving end of care. To integrate their archetype, they must learn to accept help, to receive compliments gracefully, and to allow themselves to be nurtured by others. This breaks the one-way street of the martyr and fosters relationships based on reciprocity and mutual support. Ultimately, the highest form of integration for the caregiver is to turn their powerful beam of compassion inward. It is the practice of treating themselves with the same kindness, patience, and forgiveness that they so effortlessly extend to everyone else. It means listening to their own body, honoring their own emotions, and actively pursuing their own joy. An integrated caregiver knows that their worth is inherent, not dependent on how much they do for others. They give from a place of fullness and abundance, not from a place of deficit and need. When the caregiver finally learns this lesson, when they have established a safe and nurturing environment for themselves as well as for others. A new stirring often begins. Having spent so much energy focused outward on the needs of their tribe, they may suddenly feel a sense of confinement, a loving and comfortable cage of their own making. The question begins to bubble up from a place deep within: who am I? Apart from my role as a helper, what do I want? What lies beyond the horizon of these responsibilities? This yearning for self-discovery, for a journey undertaken not for the sake of others, but for the sake of the self, marks a pivotal shift in the soul's orientation. The desire to break free from the very nest they so carefully built ignites a new kind of fire. This is the call to adventure. This is the birth of the seeker. A time comes in the life of the soul when the very safety we have cultivated begins to feel like a cage. The predictable rhythms of the nest built by the caregiver, once a source of profound comfort, can become a source of quiet suffocation. A sacred discontent begins to stir. It is a whisper at first, a faint and distant call from a part of ourselves we may have long forgotten. It's the voice that asks, is this all there is? It is the magnetic pull of the horizon, the longing for the open road, the feeling that our true life is happening somewhere else, somewhere just beyond our sight. To answer this call is to awaken one of the most restless and compelling archetypes, the seeker, also known as the explorer, the wanderer, or the pilgrim. The seeker is the part of us that yearns for a more authentic and fulfilling life, and believes it can be found by venturing into the unknown. The seeker's primary motivation is freedom. Their greatest fear is not danger or instability, but entrappement, conformity, and the inner emptiness that comes from living a life that is not one's own. They are the ultimate individuals, driven to escape the confines of a mundane existence and the expectations of the shoulds and supposeds that society imposes. This journey is not always a physical one. One can be a seeker in a library, exploring worlds of thought and philosophy. One can be a seeker in a laboratory, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. But very often, the inner journey is mirrored by an outer one. The seeker feels a deep need to leave home, to travel, to experience different cultures and ways of being, all in a quest to find out who they truly are when stripped of their familiar context. Their motto is a defiant cry from the heart of individuality: don't fence me in. In its luminous expression, the seeker is a vital force for innovation and progress. They are the trailblazers, the pioneers, and the dissenters who dare to walk a different path. Their independence gives them the courage to question the status quo and to challenge assumptions that others take for granted. They are ambitious, not necessarily for power or wealth, but for experience. They want to taste everything life has to offer, to live deeply and fully. The healthy seeker is on a quest for self-knowledge, and their journey enriches not only their own lives, but the lives of those they touch. They return from their travels, literal or metaphorical, with new perspectives, new wisdom, and a reminder to us all that the world is wide and full of wonders. They inspire us to break out of our own ruts, to try something new, and to live a little more bravely. They are the living embodiment of the idea that a life unexamined is not worth living. One of the oldest and most profound tales of the seeker is the epic journey of Odysseus. When we first meet him, he is not a restless wanderer, but a settled king. He has a wife, a son, and a kingdom he loves. He is a reluctant hero, forced into a journey he does not want. This is a crucial insight. The seeker's call often comes as a disruption to a comfortable life. His 10-year voyage home after the Trojan War is a masterclass in the seeker's inner journey. The physical landscape of his travels is a map of the soul. Each island is a test, each monster a personification of an inner demon he must conquer. The sirens, with their irresistible song, represent the temptation of fatal pleasures that can lure the seeker off their path. The Cyclops Polyphemus represents the brute, ignorant force that the seeker must outwit, not overpower. The enchantress Circe represents the danger of losing oneself in sensuality and illusion, forgetting the ultimate goal of the journey. Odysseus's quest is not simply to get back to Ithaca. It is a profound journey of transformation. He leaves as a proud, arrogant, and cunning king. Famous for his trickery, he returns as a humbled, patient, and wise man, disguised as a beggar. Stripped of all external status, he has journeyed to the land of the dead, listened to the wisdom of the prophet Tiresias, and learned the hard lessons of humility from the gods he offended. The journey breaks him down and rebuilds him. He had to lose his home, his crew, and his identity to truly find himself. The seeker learns that the destination is never just a place on a map. The true purpose of the journey is to become the person who is worthy of arriving. The ultimate treasure is the wisdom gained along the way. However, the seeker's restless energy, if left unexamined, can cast a long and lonely shadow. The noble quest for authenticity can devolve into aimless wandering. The shadow seeker is in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction. They are the person who believes that happiness is always somewhere else in the next city, the next country, the next relationship, the next career. They get a new job, and for a few months, it's exciting and new. But then the novelty wears off, and they begin to feel that familiar sense of entrapment and start scanning the horizon once more. They are running, but they are not running towards a goal. They are running from the emptiness within themselves. They fail to realize that they bring their own inner landscape with them wherever they go. The feeling of being trapped is not coming from their circumstances, but from their own mind. This leads to the seeker's other significant shadow, a deep-seated fear of commitment. Because no situation is ever perfect, no relationship is without its flaws, and no career is endlessly exciting. The shadow seeker cannot plant roots. They keep all their options open, which, in reality, is a prison of its own. To commit to a person, a place, or a path feels like a death sentence to their freedom. They are the eternal student who never chooses a career, the romantic who sabotages every budding relationship before it gets too serious, the traveler who can't stay in one place for more than a few months. In their frantic effort to avoid being fenced in, they prevent themselves from ever building anything of lasting value or experiencing the profound, transformative journey of exploring a single subject or a single relationship in all its depth and complexity. In their radical nonconformity, they can end up utterly alone, a critic of a world they refuse to join. So how does the seeker find true freedom? Not the illusion of it. The path of integration begins with a monumental shift in perspective. The journey must, eventually, turn from outward exploration to inward pilgrimage. The integrated seeker comes to understand that the external world is a mirror. The freedom they crave is not a geographical location. It is a state of being. They realize they can bring the spirit of the seeker to any situation, even a committed one. They learn that true adventure can be found in the challenges of a long-term marriage, in the mastery of a difficult craft, or in the dedication to building a community. The integrated seeker stops running from themselves and starts exploring themselves. They learn to sit with their own discomfort, to investigate the source of their restlessness rather than immediately trying to escape it. They understand that commitment is not a trap, but a different kind of journey, a journey into depth rather than breadth. By committing to a path, they are free to explore its mysteries in a way the aimless wanderer never can. The ultimate destination for the seeker is to find a sense of home within their own skin. When you are at peace with yourself, when you have found that still, quiet center within, you are free, no matter where you are. The frantic need to search quiets down, replaced by a more conscious, deliberate, and joyful exploration of the life that is right in front of them. But this journey of seeking, whether outward or inward, is never a simple stroll down a pleasant path. By its very definition, it involves leaving the safety of the known and confronting the challenges of the unknown. The world pushes back. Our own inner demons of fear, doubt, and laziness rise up to block the way. The seeker may identify the path, but a different kind of energy is required to clear the obstacles that stand upon it, to face down the monsters, both literal and metaphorical, to maintain discipline when the initial enthusiasm fades, and to fight for the right to live an authentic life requires courage, focus, and an unwavering will. The seeker might have the map, but to make the journey, they must call upon the focused power of our next guide. They must awaken the warrior. The seeker may find the path, but it is the warrior who clears it. The journey into the unknown is inevitably fraught with obstacles. The world pushes back. Inner demons of doubt and fear rise up like dragons to guard the treasure of an authentic life. Curiosity and wanderlust, the fuel of the seeker, are not enough to overcome these challenges. A moment comes when a different kind of energy is required. A force that is focused, disciplined, and courageous. A power that does not just explore the boundary, but defends it. A will that does not just wish for a better life, but is willing to fight for it. When we answer this call to action, we awaken the potent and essential archetype of the warrior. The warrior is the part of us that gets things done. It is the archetype of focused will, courage, and discipline, dedicated to achieving a goal and protecting what is valuable. While it can manifest on a literal battlefield, its true domain is the landscape of everyday life. It is the energy we summon to get out of bed on a difficult day, to train for a marathon, to study for a critical exam, to have a difficult but necessary conversation, or to stand up for a principle we believe in. The warrior's greatest fear is not pain or conflict, but powerlessness, weakness, and ineffectiveness. It cannot abide being a passive victim of circumstance. Its creed is one of action and determination, a resolute belief that where there is a will, there is a way. In its positive and luminous form, the warrior is the champion of all that is good and just. It is not a mindless brute, but a force of incredible focus and integrity. Its primary virtue is discipline, the ability to subordinate fleeting moods, comforts, and fears to a higher purpose. It is the part of you that chooses the long-term goal over the short-term gratification. Its second virtue is courage, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in the face of fear. The warrior feels the fear and does it anyway. And its third virtue is a powerful sense of purpose. The light side warrior fights for something, for a family, for a community, for justice, for a creative vision, for the protection of the innocent. This noble purpose acts as its moral compass, guiding the use of its strength and ensuring it remains a force for building up, not just tearing down. This is the archetype that gives us the strength to overcome adversity, to protect our boundaries, and to turn our dreams into reality. A perfect embodiment of the integrated warrior is not the bloodthirsty god of war, Ares, but the Greek goddess Athena. She is the goddess of both wisdom and warfare. And this duality is the key to understanding the archetype in its highest form. Her battles are not driven by rage or bloodlust, but by strategy, justice, and the desire to protect civilization. She is the patron of heroes like Odysseus, but she does not simply grant them brute strength. She grants them strategic insight and cunning wisdom. Her power is guided by intellect and a clear moral vision. As the patron goddess of the city of Athens, she represents the warrior's crucial function in establishing and defending law, order, art, and society. She is the protector of the hearth and the city walls, by contrasting her with her half-brother Ares, who represents the chaotic, brutal, and destructive frenzy of battle. We see the profound difference between the shadow warrior and the light. Athena is the warrior who wields her power with a compassionate heart and a strategic mind. But the line between a protector and a tyrant is thin. And the warrior's shadow is responsible for some of the deepest suffering in the world. When the warrior loses its connection to a higher purpose, its strength becomes a tool for domination. This is the shadow of the bully and the tyrant. The drive to win becomes an all-consuming obsession, and anyone who disagrees or stands in the way is no longer a person, but an obstacle to be crushed. They use their power, whether physical, intellectual, or emotional, to intimidate and control others for their own selfish gain. The goal is no longer justice or protection, but power for power's sake. Another shadow emerges when the warrior begins to see every situation as a battle. They develop a hammer and nail syndrome, where their only tool is aggression and their only goal is to win. Every conversation becomes a debate. Every disagreement, a declaration of war. They bring a combative, defensive energy into their relationships, their workplaces, and their homes, creating conflict where none needs to exist. They are constantly looking for a fight, unable to relax their guard or to engage with the world in a spirit of cooperation or play. This hypervigilance, while useful on a battlefield, is exhausting and alienating in daily life. Perhaps the most insidious shadow of the warrior, however, is its relationship with vulnerability. In its pursuit of absolute strength, the archetype can develop a deep terror of anything perceived as weak. The shadow warrior represses their softer emotions, sadness, grief, fear, loneliness. They encase their heart in impenetrable emotional armor. They believe that to show vulnerability is to invite attack, while this armor may protect them from getting hurt. It also cuts them off from the wellspring of human connection. They cannot experience true intimacy because they cannot allow anyone to see the person behind the shield. They can win every argument and conquer every challenge, but they do so alone, unable to give or receive the gentle comfort of a compassionate touch. They win the battle, but lose the connection to their own heart and the hearts of others. Integrating the warrior archetype is a journey of learning to wield power with wisdom and heart. The first step is learning to choose your battles. The integrated warrior understands that not every slight is a declaration of war, and not every hill is worth dying on. They cultivate discernment, saving their formidable energy for the fights that truly matter, the ones that align with their core values. They learn that strategic retreat can be an act of strength, and that yielding in a minor conflict to preserve a relationship is an act of wisdom. The second crucial step is to consciously connect their actions to a purpose beyond their own ego. The integrated warrior asks not just can I win, but should I fight? They tether their strength to a noble cause. Whether it's raising a healthy family, building an ethical business, or creating art that inspires, this higher purpose becomes the rudder that steers their ship, preventing them from being blown about by the winds of aggression and ego. The ultimate integration for the warrior, the path of Athena, is to combine strength with an open heart. It is the profound realization that true strength is not the opposite of vulnerability. It includes it. The integrated warrior learns when to take off the armor. They understand that allowing oneself to be truly seen, with all of our fears and imperfections, is one of the most courageous acts of all. They are no longer just a soldier, they become a guardian. They can be both fierce and gentle, powerful and compassionate, a formidable protector and a loving partner. They know how to fight, but more importantly, they know what is worth fighting for, and they do so with their whole, undivided, and courageous heart. The warrior is an unparalleled expert at achieving goals and overcoming obstacles within a given structure. It can conquer enemies and win the prize. But what happens when the enemy is not a person or a single obstacle, but the structure itself? What happens when the walls that must be breached are the very foundations of a corrupt system, a stagnant belief, or a self-destructive personal habit? When the warrior's focused energy is turned against the established order, it transforms into something more radical, more chaotic, and more revolutionary. The impulse to tear down the old world, to make way for a new one, awakens a different, more volatile archetype. This is the untamed energy of the destroyer, the rebel, When the warrior's righteous anger is no longer aimed at an external enemy, but at the very walls of the world they inhabit. A profound shift occurs when the fight is not for a prize within the game, but against the rules of the game itself. The disciplined energy of the soldier transforms into the volatile, untamed power of the revolutionary. This is the birth of the archetype that society often fears the most, yet desperately needs for its own evolution. This is the realm of the destroyer, the rebel, the liberator. Its purpose is not malice, but catharsis. It is the sacred impulse to shatter what is stagnant, to burn away what is false, and to break the chains of any structure, be it a toxic habit, an oppressive belief system, or a corrupt institution that is stifling the growth of the soul. The rebel is born from a feeling of confinement. It is the part of us that cannot breathe in the face of conformity, that feels a visceral rage against injustice and hypocrisy. Its greatest fear is to be trapped, controlled, and rendered powerless by a soul-crushing status quo. It is the voice inside that finally screams, "Enough is enough." Its motto is not a request, but a decree. This must end. In its luminous expression, the destroyer is a powerful agent of necessary change. It is the truth teller, like the child in the story of the emperor's new clothes, who dares to point out the absurdity that everyone else is too afraid to acknowledge. It is the force that breaks us out of our self-imposed prisons, giving us the sudden courage to quit the dead-end job, to end the toxic relationship, to finally break the addiction. On a larger scale, the rebel is the engine of all social progress. It is the energy of the American Revolution, the civil rights movement, the suffragettes. It challenges what is obsolete and opens the way for innovation, like a controlled burn in a forest. The destroyer clears away the dead wood and decaying undergrowth, allowing sunlight to reach the forest floor so that new, healthy life can flourish. It is not an enemy to life, it is an ally to evolution. It understands the painful but essential truth that sometimes things must fall apart so that better things can come together. To understand the sacred nature of this archetype, we can look to one of the most powerful figures in world mythology, the Hindu god Shiva. Shiva is not a devil or a demon. He is one of the three supreme deities. Revered as the god of transformation, he is often depicted as Nataraja, the lord of the dance. This is not a dance of simple fury, but a cosmic, rhythmic act of dissolution and creation. In his dance, one foot crushes a demon representing ignorance, symbolizing the destruction of illusion. In one hand, he holds the fire that consumes the old universe, dissolving it into potential. Yet another hand is raised in a gesture that means fear not. This is the profound secret of the integrated destroyer. Its purpose is not to terrorize, but to liberate. Shiva's destruction is never the final act. He dissolves the cosmos at the end of each great cycle, only so that it can be reborn, purified and renewed. He is the ultimate transformer, who understands that for creation to occur, destruction is a necessary and holy precursor. But this volcanic energy, if not guided by wisdom, creates a shadow of terrifying and pointless devastation. When the rebel's energy is untethered from a creative purpose, it devolves into blind rage and nihilistic anarchy. This is the shadow that seeks destruction for its own sake, that becomes addicted to the adrenaline of chaos and opposition. This is the person who defines themselves solely by what they are against, with no vision for what they are for. They become a professional critic, a perpetual contrarian who tears down every idea but builds nothing in its place. They burn down their own lives and the lives of those around them, not to clear the way for something better, but simply for the grim satisfaction of watching things burn. The most common and tragic manifestation of this shadow, however, is when the destructive energy is turned inward. This is the shadow of the self-saboteur. Just when things are going well, when the relationship becomes stable, the career takes off, or the personal goal is within reach, the inner rebel feels trapped by the impending success and responsibility. To escape this perceived prison, It engineers a crisis. It provokes a fight. Quits the job. Misses the deadline. Or relapses into a destructive habit. The self-saboteur is a rebel without a cause. And the only kingdom available for them to overthrow is the one of their own making. They snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, ensuring they remain free in a state of perpetual failure and proving their own cynical belief that nothing good can ever last. So how does one harness this immense power without being consumed by it? How do we become a conscious agent of change rather than a wrecking ball? The integration of the destroyer begins by bringing consciousness to the destructive impulse, instead of acting out of a blind rage. The integrated rebel becomes a strategic demolition expert. They ask the critical questions: what precisely needs to end here? What is the core of the problem? And what is my vision for what will replace it? They learn to differentiate between the structure that needs to be torn down and the people within it. They aim their fire with precision, not with indiscriminate fury. The most crucial shift on the path of integration is moving from being motivated by a no to being powered by a greater yes. The shadow rebel is fueled by what they hate. The integrated rebel is fueled by what they love. They have a burning vision for the beautiful garden they want to plant. And it is this vision that gives them the courage and justification to tear down the old concrete parking lot that stands in its way. Their destruction is not an act of rage, but an act of fierce, creative love. Finally, the integrated rebel learns the subtle art of letting go. They realize that not every outdated structure needs to be dynamited. Some can simply be abandoned. Some old habits and beliefs, when we stop feeding them, our energy and attention will wither and die on their own. The integrated rebel learns to release what no longer serves them. Not always with a bang, but sometimes with a quiet sense of gratitude for the lessons it taught, making peace with the past as they turn to create the future. This act of conscious destruction, whether sudden or gradual, inevitably leaves a void. The old structures are gone. The ground has been cleared and leveled. The air is still thick with the smoke of transformation. But the space is now open, rough, and trembling with potential. A profound emptiness waits to be filled. What force can possibly enter this space to begin the work of healing and rebuilding? It is not the warrior, whose job was to fight, nor the rebel, whose job was to tear down. The energy needed now is one that connects, one that binds, one that weaves new life from the ashes. It is the primal, magnetic, and universal urge to connect, to feel, to create beauty, and to experience bliss in the newly cleared space. This is the sacred call of our next guide. This is the call of the lover, into the silence that follows the destroyer's righteous fire, into the raw, empty space where old structures once stood. A new energy steers. It does not erupt, it emerges. It is not an energy of force, but of magnetism. It is the primal, irresistible pull of connection, the universal gravity that draws separate things together to form a greater whole. It is the force that commands the first green shoot to rise from the scorched earth, that compels the tide to reach for the moon, that inspires the first touch between two hands in the lonely darkness. This is the domain of the archetype that gives life its flavor, its color, and its meaning. This is the realm of the lover. When we speak of the lover, we must immediately expand our vision beyond the narrow confines of romantic love. The lover is the archetype of passion in all its forms. It is the part of us that falls in love not only with another person, but with a piece of music, a breathtaking sunset, a field of scientific inquiry, a spiritual path, or a work of art. The lover's core desire is to achieve a state of blissful union, to dissolve the boundaries of the self and merge with the object of its devotion. Its world is one of sensory delight, deep feeling, and profound connection. Its greatest fears are to be disconnected, to be unwanted, to live in a gray, passionless world without beauty or intimacy. Its focused, devoted motto is, "I only have eyes for you." In its luminous expression, the lover is what makes life truly worth living. A person guided by the light of this archetype is fully present in their body and in the world. They don't just eat, they savor. They don't just look, they see. They don't just hear, they listen. They are masters of attunement and appreciation, able to find beauty and pleasure in the simplest of things. They possess the capacity to form deep, authentic, and intimate bonds with others, creating relationships built on vulnerability, empathy, and mutual adoration. Their passion is a generative force. The person who is in love with their work is the one who innovates and achieves breakthroughs. The person who is in love with an ideal is the one who inspires movements. The lover invites us to experience the world not as a problem to be solved or a battle to be won, but as a feast for the senses and the soul. A grand affair to be joined with passion and an open heart. The ancient myth of Eros and Psyche is a profound allegory for the lover's journey toward integration. Psyche, a mortal woman of such beauty that she incites the jealousy of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, represents the human soul. Eros, the god of love and passion, represents the divine, instinctual force of love itself. They fall in love, but Eros visits Psyche only in the darkness of night, forbidding her to look upon his face. This represents the first stage of love, a blissful, unconscious union, pure feeling without knowledge or understanding. But Psyche, urged on by her jealous sisters who represent the doubting, rational mind, betrays his trust. She lights a lamp to see him, to know him, to possess him. A drop of hot oil falls from the lamp, waking Eros, and he flees, wounded by her lack of faith. This is the core wound of the lover, the loss of connection through the desire to control or the failure to trust. What follows is not the end, but the true beginning of the lover's journey. To win back her beloved, Psyche, the soul, must undertake a series of impossible tasks set by a vengeful Aphrodite. She must sort a mountain of mixed grains, gather the golden fleece of violent rams, and even journey to the underworld. These tasks represent the trials the soul must endure to become worthy of true, conscious love. It must learn patience, discernment, courage, and resilience. It cannot remain a passive recipient of bliss. It must become an active hero in its own right. After completing these trials, Psyche is finally reunited with Eros and made a goddess herself. Their union becomes a sacred marriage, a conscious, earned integration of the human soul, Psyche, with divine passion, Eros. This is the ultimate goal of the lover, to move from blind infatuation to a conscious, wholehearted, and spiritual union. But the intense fire of the lover, if left untempered, can cast a devastating shadow. The beautiful desire for union can become a desperate, consuming need to possess the beloved. This is the shadow of obsession. The obsessive lover cannot tolerate the separateness of their partner. They become consumed by jealousy, monitoring their partner's every move, their passion curdling into a toxic cocktail of fear and control. The object of their affection is no longer a person to be cherished, but a possession to be guarded. Another common shadow is the complete loss of self. The lover can become so enmeshed with their partner, so desperate for union, that they dissolve their own identity. They abandon their own hobbies, friends, and interests, adopting those of their partner in an effort to become a perfect mirror. Their entire sense of self-worth becomes precariously balanced on the state of the relationship. Their mood soars with a kind word and plummets into despair with the slightest sign of distance. If the relationship ends, they feel that they are literally nothing, for they have sacrificed their own soul on the altar of the other. The lover's quest for bliss can also devolve into an addiction to sensation. They become addicted not to a person, but to the intoxicating chemical rush of new love. This is the serial romantic, who leaps from one passionate affair to the next, always chasing the high of the initial chase and conquest. They are incapable of navigating the quieter, more stable, and often more profound phases of a long-term, committed relationship because it doesn't provide the constant stimulation they crave. This shadow can also manifest as an addiction to other sensory pleasures, food, alcohol, shopping, using fleeting moments of pleasure to fill the deep, aching void that only true, authentic connection can satisfy. The integration of the lover archetype. The journey from obsessive passion to profound intimacy begins with a radical reorientation of its powerful energy. The first and most vital step is to turn that immense capacity for love inward. The integrated lover learns that another person cannot make them whole. They must first cultivate a loving and passionate relationship with themselves. They learn to enjoy their own company, to cherish their own qualities, and to provide for their own emotional needs. Self-love becomes the stable foundation upon which all other healthy relationships can be built. You must be your own beloved first. From this foundation, the integrated lover begins to expand their definition of love. They learn to see that romantic love is just one color in a magnificent spectrum. They actively cultivate a passionate connection to other things, to their friendships, to their work, to nature, to art, to their community. They find intimacy in a deep conversation with a friend, bliss in a walk through the woods, union in the act of creation. This diversification of their emotional portfolio takes the immense pressure off a single romantic partner to be their entire world, allowing that relationship to breathe and flourish. The integrated lover understands that true love requires boundaries. It respects the separateness and autonomy of the beloved. They can be devoted without being dependent, and passionate without being possessive. They know that the strongest bonds are formed not by two halves desperately clinging to each other, but by two whole individuals choosing to walk their paths side by side. When this passionate, connective energy of the lover is integrated, grounded, and made conscious, it becomes a stable and profoundly generative force. The feeling of love and appreciation for something, a person, an idea, a vision of beauty creates an intense, creative desire. It is no longer enough to simply admire the object of affection. A powerful new urge arises. The lover now wishes to give that formless passion a tangible form. The love of music yearns to compose a symphony. The love of words yearns to write a poem. The love between two people yearns to build a home, a family, a shared life. This potent, creative impulse, born directly from the fire of the lover's passion, is the driving force of our next great archetype. It is the call to bring something new into the world. It is the call of the creator, the fire of the lover. When integrated and sustained, does not simply burn, it forges the deep, passionate connection to an idea, a person, or a vision. Creates an almost unbearable tension, a sacred urgency to give that formless energy a body, a voice, a home in the material world. This alchemical impulse, which seeks to translate the energies of the soul into tangible reality, is the driving force behind one of humanity's most essential archetypes. It is the call to participate in the cosmic unfolding, to make our mark on the canvas of existence. This is the call of the creator. The creator, also known as the artist, the innovator, the inventor, or the builder, is the architect of our world. We must understand this archetype in its broadest and most inclusive sense. The creator is not just the painter in a studio or the novelist in a garret. It is the entrepreneur dreaming up a new business, the chef crafting a new dish, the parent cultivating a loving family, the engineer designing a bridge, the gardener tending a plot of land. Any act that brings something new, valuable, and authentic into existence from the raw material of imagination is an act of the creator. Its fundamental desire is to manifest a vision, to give form to what is formless. Its greatest fear is to have a grand vision and fail to bring it to life, or to create something mediocre and inauthentic. Its confident motto is a bold declaration of power. If I can imagine it, I can create it. In its luminous expression, the creator is a channel for the divine. A person aligned with the light of this archetype has a direct line to the wellspring of imagination. They see possibilities where others see only empty space. They are not merely dreamers. However, the healthy creator possesses the focus and discipline borrowed from the warrior to undertake the hard, often tedious work of manifestation. They are the bridge between the world of spirit and the world of form. Between the unseen and the seen, they are willing to wrestle with the stubborn materials of reality to give their vision a home. This process of making gives their life profound meaning. They experience the deep joy of being a co-creator with the universe, of participating in the ongoing story of creation. Their work is not just a job, it is an act of devotion. There is perhaps no greater human example of the creator archetype than Leonardo da Vinci. He was the quintessential Renaissance man, a testament to the boundless potential of a creative mind. His creative drive could not be confined to a single discipline. He was a master painter, but he was also a brilliant anatomist, an inventor, a musician, a military engineer, and a botanist. For Leonardo, the world was a singular, fascinating text to be explored and expressed. His legendary notebooks are a window into the mind of the creator. They are filled with breathtakingly beautiful anatomical drawings, intricate designs for flying machines and war machines centuries ahead of their time, and profound observations on the nature of light and water. They reveal a mind that saw no distinction between art and science, between beauty and function. Both were simply different languages for describing and shaping the truth. Yet, Leonardo's life also reveals the central struggle of the creator. His infamous habit of leaving masterpieces like the Adoration of the Magi unfinished speaks volumes about the archetype's shadow. His vision was often so cosmically vast, so divinely perfect in his mind, that the messy, difficult, and imperfect process of bringing it into the material world could lead to frustration and paralysis. This gap between the perfect inner vision and the flawed outer reality is the source of the creator's primary shadow, crippling perfectionism. In the mind of the creator, the symphony is flawless, the novel is profound, the painting is luminous, but the moment they try to manifest it, they are confronted with the limitations of their skill and their materials. The shadow creator becomes so terrified of this inevitable imperfection, so afraid that the reality will betray the vision, that they become paralyzed. This is the root of writer's block, of the painter who stares at a blank canvas for months, of the inventor whose workshop is filled with half-finished projects. They would rather create nothing at all than create something that falls short of their divine, internal standard. From this paralysis can grow the shadow of the tortured artist. The shadow creator can begin to romanticize their own suffering, believing that angst, turmoil, and poverty are necessary prerequisites for authentic creation. They may use their artistic temperament as an excuse to be unreliable, to neglect their relationships, and to avoid the practical responsibilities of life. They become a caricature, believing that their genius absolves them from the ordinary demands of being a functional human being, often causing great pain to themselves and those who try to support them. A darker shadow still is the creator tyrant, who becomes obsessed with their own legacy. The drive to create something of lasting value mutates into a monomaniacal obsession. They will sacrifice anything and anyone on the altar of their great work. Their creation becomes more important than the lives it is meant to enrich. And they become tyrants in their studios, their companies, or their homes, demanding perfection and leaving a trail of exhausted and resentful people in their wake. So, how does the creator escape this prison of perfectionism and find joy and fulfillment in their work? The path of integration is a gentle but profound shift in focus. They must learn to fall in love with the process, not just the product. The integrated creator finds joy in the daily practice. They learn to love the messy, unpredictable, frustrating, and exhilarating act of making. They find bliss in the feeling of the clay taking shape in their hands, in the intellectual puzzle of structuring a story, In the collaborative energy of building a business, the destination is important, but the journey becomes the true reward. To facilitate this, the integrated creator learns to silence their inner perfectionist critic by embracing the liberating concept of being good enough. They understand that shipping an imperfect creation into the world is infinitely more valuable and courageous than hoarding a perfect vision in their mind. They begin to see their works not as a final judgment on their talent or worth, but as beautiful, honest snapshots of who they were and what they were capable of at a particular point in their journey. This allows them to finish projects and move on to the next, embracing a path of continuous growth rather than a state of paralyzed perfection. Finally, the integrated creator rediscovers the spirit of play. They allow themselves to be curious, to experiment without a goal, to make messes, and to create bad art with a sense of humor and self-compassion. This playful, low-stakes approach reconnects them to the pure, unadulterated joy that sparked their creative impulse in the first place. Once the creator has successfully navigated this journey, something new and tangible exists in the world. A company has been launched, a work of art has been completed, a family has been started, a new idea has been articulated. But the act of creation, as powerful as it is only the beginning. A brilliant idea needs a strategic plan to be implemented. A business needs structure, roles, and a mission to grow. A family needs routines and responsibilities to function harmoniously. A community needs leadership and laws to thrive and endure. The passionate, sometimes chaotic, and visionary energy of the creator is often ill-suited for the tasks of management, governance, and long-term stability. A different archetype, with a different set of skills, must now step onto the stage to give order to the creation, to protect it, and to help it prosper. This is the call for conscious leadership and responsibility. This is the call of the ruler, the creator, in a blaze of passion and inspiration, brings a new world into being. But this newborn creation, whether it is a business, a family, or a work of art, is fragile. It is a vibrant but chaotic ecosystem, teeming with potential but lacking the structure to sustain itself. Passion alone cannot create stability. Vision alone cannot pay the bills. A different kind of intelligence is now required. An energy not of wild invention, but of wise stewardship, of conscious organization, and of benevolent governance, to ensure that the creation survives and flourishes. A new archetype must be summoned from the depths of the psyche. This is the moment we call upon the ruler. In our modern world, the very word ruler can evoke suspicion. We think of despots, monarchs, and the rigid hierarchies of the past. But to understand this archetype, we must look beyond the crown and throne. The ruler is the part of us that takes ultimate responsibility for a domain. That domain might be a company, a community, or a family. But its most fundamental and important expression is the kingdom of our own life. The ruler is the archetype that seeks to bring order, prosperity, and harmony to its sphere of influence, creating a world where things work and people can thrive. Its greatest fears are chaos, decline, and the loss of control that leads to the ruin of its kingdom. The motto of the integrated ruler is not a boast of power, but a profound acceptance of duty. I am responsible for the world I have created. In its luminous form, the ruler is the benevolent sovereign, the wise leader, the responsible steward. A person embodying the light of this archetype feels a deep and abiding sense of duty to those they lead. Their motivation is not the accumulation of personal power or wealth, but a genuine desire to serve the greater good of their kingdom. They have a natural gift for seeing the big picture, for creating systems, structures, and rules that provide clarity and allow for smooth, productive growth. A healthy ruler creates an environment of stability and security, where creativity can flourish precisely because there is a safe and predictable container for it. They are the wise parent who sets fair boundaries, the effective CEO who creates a healthy company culture, and the self-disciplined individual who governs their own impulses to build a productive and meaningful life. Their power comes from the trust they inspire, and their greatest achievement is a thriving, happy, and prosperous domain. The archetypal story of the wise ruler is perfectly captured in the figure of King Solomon. His legend is not one of military conquest, but of unparalleled wisdom, justice, and prosperity. The pivotal moment in his story comes when God appears to him in a dream and offers him anything he desires. Laisser rouler, a shadow ruler, would have asked for immense riches, long life, or the death of his enemies. Solomon's request reveals the heart of the integrated archetype. He asks for a listening heart to judge your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. He asks not for personal gain, but for the wisdom to serve his kingdom well. This divine gift is famously illustrated in his judgment between the two women claiming the same child. Faced with an impossible dilemma, he doesn't merely apply a rigid law. He devises a brilliant psychological test. By ordering the baby to be cut in two, he creates a situation that bypasses their lies and reveals the truth of the human heart. The real mother would rather give up her child than see it harmed. This shows that the wise ruler's authority rests not on brute force, but on a deep understanding of compassion and human nature. Solomon's reign is remembered as a golden age of peace and prosperity, symbolized by his greatest achievement, the construction of the magnificent temple in Jerusalem. This act represents the ruler's highest function to take the spiritual vision of the Creator and give it a lasting, orderly, and glorious structure in the heart of the kingdom. But for every wise Solomon, history shows us a tyrannical pharaoh. The shadow of the ruler is the tyrant, the control freak, the healthy desire for order, when corrupted by fear, becomes an obsessive need for absolute control. The shadow ruler micromanages every detail, trusts no one to do anything correctly, and crushes the autonomy and creativity of their subjects with a mountain of rigid rules and procedure. Their kingdom may be orderly on the surface, but it is a lifeless, fearful, and resentful place. They rule not by inspiration, but by intimidation. The tyrant lives in a state of constant paranoia, terrified of losing their grip on power. They see potential rivals everywhere and will ruthlessly sideline, discredit, or eliminate anyone who appears too competent or charismatic. They cannot delegate authority, partly because they believe no one else is capable, but more deeply because they are terrified of empowering someone who might one day challenge their throne. Their need to be the sole authority isolates them, cutting them off from the vital information and diverse perspectives they need to rule wisely. In their relentless pursuit of control, the shadow ruler often becomes emotionally detached, seeing the people in their kingdom not as living souls, but as chess pieces to be moved, assets to be managed, or problems to be solved. They lose the listening heart of Solomon and become cold, calculating, and dangerously out of touch with the human consequences of their decisions. The integration of the ruler archetype is a profound journey from control to empowerment, from ego to service. The first and most critical territory the ruler must learn to govern is the kingdom of their own inner world. They must achieve sovereignty over their own chaotic emotions, their reactive impulses, and their undisciplined thoughts. Self-mastery is the absolute bedrock of their authority. An individual who cannot rule themselves cannot hope to rule anything else effectively or ethically. The second great task is to perform a radical shift in perspective from believing my kingdom exists to serve me, to understanding I exist to serve my kingdom. This transforms leadership from a right to a responsibility. The integrated ruler's decisions are guided not by what will inflate their ego or line their pockets, but by what will best serve the long-term health and prosperity of their domain. Their power becomes a tool for service. From this foundation, they learn that true power is not hoarded, but shared and multiplied. The integrated ruler excels at identifying the unique talents in others. They create clear roles, provide the necessary resources, bestow their trust, and then get out of the way, allowing their people to take ownership and flourish. The strength of their reign is measured not by how many followers they command, but by how many leaders they create. When a wise ruler has brought order and prosperity to their domain, when the systems are running smoothly and the kingdom is secure, they may begin to sense the limitations of their power. They realize that structure, rules, and even benevolent control can only go so far. A kingdom can be perfectly functional, yet lack a deeper magic, a sense of higher purpose. The wisest rulers come to understand that to solve the most complex problems and to elevate their kingdom to a new level of meaning and success, they need access to a different kind of influence. They need a power that works not through direct force, but through a deeper understanding of the hidden laws of the universe. They seek the ability to shift consciousness, to influence events from the inside out, and to align their kingdom with the subtle, invisible currents of reality itself. This yearning for a hidden knowledge, for the power of transformation, awakens the most mysterious and potent of guides, the magician, the wise ruler. Having built a kingdom of order and stability, eventually confronts the limits of worldly power. They discover that rules can enforce compliance but cannot inspire change. They learn that authority can command action but cannot transform a human heart. To solve the deepest problems, to heal the most persistent wounds, and to elevate their domain to a new level of consciousness and prosperity, the ruler realizes they need a different kind of influence. They need a power that can bend reality without breaking it. A power that works not through force, but through insight and leverage. This yearning for a power that can alter the very fabric of a situation from the inside out is the call that summons the most mysterious of archetypes, the magician. We must immediately clear our minds of stage tricks and fantasy spells. The magician archetype is not about pulling rabbits out of hats. It is about understanding and working with the fundamental laws of the universe to create transformation. The magician is the master of hidden knowledge. Their domain is the intricate web of cause and effect, the unseen currents of consciousness, and the universal principles that govern reality. They are the ultimate psychologists, strategists, and shamans of the psyche. Their core desire is to understand these laws so completely that they can use them to heal, to guide, and to manifest a better reality. Their greatest fear is not failure, but causing unintended harm by unleashing forces they do not fully comprehend. The motto of the magician is a quiet statement of profound efficacy: I make things happen. In its luminous expression, the magician is a catalyst for profound and positive change. They are masters of leverage, knowing the precise acupuncture point in a system where a small, skillful intervention can create a massive shift. They can be the therapist who offers a single, transformative insight that reframes a client's entire life. The visionary leader who articulates a new possibility that galvanizes a culture. Or the healer who understands how to restore balance to a body or a mind. The light side magician does not see a world of separate objects, but a world of interconnected energy. They are visionaries who perceive the hidden potential in people and situations. They hold a clear vision for a more harmonious reality and use their knowledge to guide events toward that outcome. At their highest level, they create elegant, win-win solutions, resolving conflicts and creating abundance in ways that seem miraculous to the uninitiated. They are masters of synchronicity, consciously aligning themselves with the flow of the universe to bring about their desired aims. The quintessential magician archetype in Western mythology is the figure of Merlin from the Arthurian legends. Merlin's role is crucial to understand. He is the most powerful figure in the kingdom, yet he never seeks the crown for himself. He is the guide, the counselor, the wise power behind the throne. This illustrates the magician's proper relationship to the ruler. Their purpose is to empower leadership with vision and wisdom. Not to rule directly, Merlin engineers the conditions for Camelot's golden age. He orchestrates the miraculous sword in the stone test, a brilliant piece of psychological theater designed to reveal and legitimize the true king in the hearts of the people. He used prophecy, vision, and a deep understanding of human nature to guide Arthur's reign. Merlin's power is rooted in his connection to the deep magic of the land, the ancient forces of nature, and the hidden rhythms of destiny. He doesn't break the laws of reality. He works through them, demonstrating that the magician's power comes from alignment, not domination. Yet, for every wise Merlin, there is a manipulative sorcerer. The shadow of the magician is one of the most dangerous, for it cloaks itself in an aura of wisdom and mystique. The shadow magician uses their profound knowledge of psychology, influence, and universal laws for purely selfish ends. This is the realm of the master manipulator. They become experts at gaslighting, at using half-truths, and at playing on the emotions and insecurities of others to get what they want. They see people as pawns in their own intricate games, moving them about with a chilling detachment. Their magic is the dark art of making others doubt their own reality to serve the sorcerer's agenda. This can lead to a shadow of deep emotional detachment and hubris in their quest for secret knowledge and power. The shadow magician may come to believe they are above the common rules of morality. They get lost in their own complex theories and esoteric systems, losing touch with their own heart and the simple, grounding realities of human life. They value knowledge over love, and influence over connection. A different, though equally dangerous, shadow is that of the sorcerer's apprentice. This is the magician who is impatient for results and dabbles with powerful forces they do not truly understand. In their eagerness to create change, they meddle with complex systems, be it a person's psyche, a company's culture, or a spiritual practice, and inadvertently unleash chaos, causing far more harm than good through their well-intentioned but ignorant interventions. To wield the power of transformation ethically and effectively is the great work of integrating the magician. The first and most essential step is to dedicate one's power to a purpose greater than the self. The integrated magician's goal is always healing, empowerment, and the positive evolution of the whole. This commitment to service acts as a powerful moral compass, safeguarding them from the temptation to manipulate for personal gain. The second step is a profound re-understanding of magic itself. The integrated magician learns that true manifestation is not about tricking the universe or bending others to their will. It is about the deep, inner work of transforming the self. They understand that their consciousness is the ultimate creative instrument. To change the outer world, they must first change their inner world, their beliefs, their assumptions, their energetic state. They work to become a vibrational match for the reality they wish to create, knowing that the external world will then rearrange itself as a natural reflection of their inner alignment. The magic always happens inside first. Finally, the wise magician approaches the great mysteries of the universe with profound humility. They know that they are a channel for power, not its source. They maintain a beginner's mind, always aware of the vastness of their own ignorance. This humility protects them from the hubris that is the downfall of the shadow sorcerer. They respect the forces they work with and understand that their role is to be a humble and responsible co-creator with the cosmos. As the magician delves deeper and deeper into the hidden laws of reality, their quest to acquire and apply knowledge can lead to a pivotal turning point. They may master the art of transformation, learning how to influence outcomes and shape events, but a new, quieter, and even more profound yearning may begin to emerge. The desire to use knowledge can begin to give way to the desire to simply know. The satisfaction of changing the world can be eclipsed by the serene bliss of simply understanding it. This sacred shift in motivation, from the application of truth to the pursuit of truth for its own sake, marks the transition from the active power of the magician to the serene wisdom of our next guide. It is the journey toward pure enlightenment. It is the path of the sage, the path of the magician, with its focus on applied knowledge and transformation, ultimately leads to a profound crossroads. After learning the secrets of how to change the world, a deeper question begins to assert itself. What is the nature of this world we are trying to change? What is the truth behind the illusion? The reality behind the appearance? The desire to manipulate the world is eclipsed by a serene, all-consuming desire to simply understand it. This pivot, from seeking power to seeking truth, is the sacred threshold that leads us into the quiet, luminous domain of the sage. The sage, also known as the philosopher, the scholar, the mentor, or the oracle, is the archetype dedicated to the pursuit of truth, knowledge, and enlightenment, where the magician seeks knowledge as a tool for application. The sage seeks knowledge for its own sake, believing that understanding is the ultimate liberation. The sage's quest is driven by a desire for clarity, a need to penetrate the fog of deception and dogma to see things as they truly are. Their greatest fears are to be misled by falsehood, to be trapped in ignorance, or to be duped by their own illusions. Their simple, powerful motto is the promise of liberation itself. The truth will set you free. In its luminous expression, the sage is a beacon of wisdom and clarity in a confused world. Possessing a highly developed intellect and a capacity for deep contemplation, the light side sage can analyze complex problems, identify patterns, and distill them down to their essential truths. They are masters of objectivity, able to step back from the emotional turmoil of a situation and provide a calm, rational, and insightful perspective. But their greatest gift is not in hoarding this knowledge, but in sharing it. The integrated sage is the natural teacher, the mentor who finds fulfillment in illuminating the path for others. They don't give simple answers, they teach others how to think, empowering them to find the truth for themselves. In times of personal or collective chaos, the sage is the still point in the turning world, offering a viewpoint grounded not in opinion, but in deep, reflective understanding. The ultimate journey of the sage is perfectly captured in the life of Siddhartha Gautama, the man who would become the Buddha. His story begins not in deprivation, but in a palace. As a prince, he is intentionally shielded by his father from all forms of suffering, living a life of pleasure and ease. This palace represents the mind trapped in a comfortable but fragile ignorance. The sage's quest begins the moment that ignorance is shattered, when Siddhartha ventures out and witnesses the four sights: an old man, a sick man, a corpse, and a wandering holy man. He is confronted for the first time with the undeniable reality of suffering and the possibility of transcending it. This awakens the burning, central question of his life: what is the cause of suffering? And what is the path to its end? Driven by this question, he renounces his worldly life and embarks on a years-long quest for truth. He studies with the great masters of his time and then undertakes extreme ascetic practices, nearly starving himself to death in the belief that punishing the body would liberate the spirit. But he finds that this path only leads to more suffering. His first great sage-like insight is the discovery of the middle way, the path of balance between the extremes of sensual indulgence and severe self-mortification. The climax of his journey comes during a long, deep meditation under the Bodhi tree. There, he confronts the temptations and illusions of his own mind, personified by the demon Mara. By observing his thoughts, fears, and desires without attachment, he sees them for what they are: impermanent, empty, and not his true self. In that moment of pure, direct seeing, he awakens. He achieves enlightenment, not a magical power, but a state of absolute clarity about the nature of reality. Crucially, like a true sage, he does not then disappear into his own bliss. He spends the next 45 years walking across India, teaching the path he discovered, driven by a deep compassion to help all beings free themselves from the suffering caused by ignorance. Yet, the noble pursuit of truth has its own subtle and dangerous shadows. The shadow sage can become so lost in the world of books, ideas, and abstract theories that they inhabit an ivory tower, completely disconnected from the messy reality of lived experience. This leads to analysis paralysis, the state of endlessly gathering more information, refining theories, and studying maps without ever taking the first step on the journey. They are the person who can lecture for hours on the philosophy of love but is incapable of maintaining a healthy relationship. Their knowledge is sterile, a collection of facts that has never been integrated into the heart or tested in the fire of real life. An even more dangerous shadow is dogmatism. The sage who comes to believe they have found the one and only truth can become intellectually arrogant, rigid, and cruelly intolerant of different perspectives. Their mind, once a tool for open inquiry, becomes a fortress. They stop being a humble seeker of wisdom and become a brittle defender of a doctrine. They surround themselves with disciples who reflect their own views and dismiss anyone who disagrees as ignorant or foolish. Their wisdom calcifies into dogma, and they become the very thing they originally sought to overcome, a source of illusion. Furthermore, in their quest for pure objectivity, the shadow sage can become emotionally cold and detached. They may value the intellect so highly that they suppress their own feelings and dismiss the emotions of others as irrational noise. They can offer a brilliant and precise analysis of someone's pain while showing no compassion whatsoever, leaving the person feeling intellectually dissected but emotionally abandoned. The integration of the sage requires moving beyond mere intellect to embrace a more holistic wisdom. The first step is to create a union of mind, body, and heart. The integrated sage understands that true wisdom is embodied knowledge. A truth must be lived, felt, and experienced to be fully understood. They use their life as a laboratory to test the principles they study, ensuring their understanding is grounded and authentic. The second step is the cultivation of intellectual humility. The truly wise sage is acutely aware of the vastness of what they do not know. They hold their conclusions lightly, always remaining open to new evidence that might challenge their current understanding. They are eternal students of reality, which protects them from the arrogant certainty of the dogmatist. Finally, the integrated sage tempers their clarity with compassion. They realize that human beings are not logical puzzles to be solved, but complex beings of thought and feeling. They learn to combine their sharp, analytical mind with the warmth of an open heart, offering guidance that is not only intelligent, but also kind, patient, and deeply humane. After the long and often serious journey of study, contemplation, and the disciplined pursuit of truth, the integrated sage may arrive at a place of profound peace and clarity. They have deconstructed illusion and seen the fundamental nature of reality. But here, at the summit of the mountain of knowledge, a surprising insight often dawns. The wisest of the wise frequently discover that the ultimate truth may include a cosmic sense of humor. They realize that after all the striving and seriousness, perhaps the highest wisdom is to not take it all so seriously. This recognition that enlightenment can also be found in lightness, in laughter, and in the simple joy of being present in the moment, opens the door to a very different, yet equally profound, expression of wisdom. The sage's solemnity finds its perfect and necessary balance in the irreverent, joyful, and liberating presence of our next guide, the jester. Just when the sage, in their serene contemplation on the mountaintop, believes they have reached the final summit of wisdom, a new sound often echoes up from the valley below. It is not the sound of chanting, nor the silent turning of pages. It is the sound of laughter. This laughter is not a refutation of the sage's wisdom, but its surprising and ultimate consummation. It is the sound of realizing the great cosmic joke that after all the striving, all the seeking, and all the seriousness, the universe might just have a sense of humor. This liberating laughter, which bubbles up when we stop taking ourselves so seriously, is the call of our next, and perhaps most misunderstood, guide. This is the arrival of the jester. The jester, also known as the fool, the trickster, or the comedian, is the archetype of living fully and joyfully in the present moment. If the sage seeks truth through detachment and analysis, the jester finds it by diving headfirst into the messy, chaotic, and absurd river of life. The jester's core desire is to play, to enjoy the sensory world, and to lighten the heavy burden of human existence. Their greatest fears are not suffering or death, but boredom, solemnity, and being trapped in a life that is devoid of pleasure and spontaneity. The jester lives by a simple, joyful creed: you only live once. In its luminous form, the jester is a profound source of wisdom and healing. They are the true masters of mindfulness, not through sitting on a cushion, but through active engagement and play. They are radically present, able to find delight in the here and now. The jester possesses an almost magical ability to shift the energy of a room. With a well-timed joke, a clever observation, or a playful change of perspective, they can dissolve tension, break down rigid thinking, and remind everyone not to take things so personally. Their greatest power, however, lies in their role as the truth-teller in disguise. Like the court jesters of old, they often have a license to speak uncomfortable truths that no one else dares to utter, because their truth is wrapped in the package of humor. It can bypass our defensive egos and land in our hearts. The jester exposes pretense, pokes holes in pomposity, and reveals the absurdities of our most cherished beliefs. Not with a stern lecture, but with a liberating laugh. Nowhere is the wisdom of this archetype more apparent than in the wise fools of William Shakespeare's plays. Characters like Feste in Twelfth Night or the Fool in King Lear are far from being simple buffoons. They are consistently the most perceptive and intelligent characters on the stage. Their motley costume is a cloak of strategic invisibility, allowing them a freedom of speech that is denied to the nobles they serve. Feste sings poignant songs about the swift passage of time and the folly of human vanity, subtly mocking the self-absorbed aristocrats around him. He uses riddles and puns, not just to entertain, but to reveal the deeper, often painful, truths of their situations. The Fool in King Lear is the only one who can speak truth to the king's raging ego, calling out his foolish decisions with a brutal, heartbreaking wit. These characters show us the jester's true function: to exist slightly outside the system in order to critique it, to use levity to reveal gravity, and to remind the powerful of their own humanity and fallibility. But the jester's path of pleasure-seeking and irreverence is fraught with its own shadows. The desire to live in the moment, when untempered by any sense of responsibility, can decay into the shadow of the sloth or the glutton. This is the jester who uses carpe diem as an excuse for chronic laziness, irresponsibility, and self-indulgence. They shirk their duties, waste their talents, and live a life of shallow hedonism, constantly chasing the next pleasure without a thought for the consequences to themselves or others. Their life becomes a string of fleeting moments with no underlying purpose or meaning. Humor, the jester's greatest gift, can also become their cruelest weapon. When compassion is absent, wit turns into sarcasm, and playfulness becomes mockery. The shadow jester becomes the cruel prankster, the cynical critic, in the office bully, who uses their sharp tongue to belittle others and assert their own superiority. Their jokes are not aimed at liberating people, but at diminishing them, all under the cowardly guise of just kidding. They use humor to create pain, not to heal it. The most poignant and tragic shadow, however, is that of the sad clown. The jester can use their relentless humor and joviality as a thick, painted-on smile to hide a deep well of inner pain, loneliness, or depression. Their laughter is not an expression of joy, but a desperate defense mechanism, a wall they build to keep anyone from seeing their vulnerability. They are the life of the party, who goes home to an empty apartment and an emptier heart. They work tirelessly to make everyone else laugh, because the moment the laughter stops, they are left alone with a silence they cannot bear. Their entire identity is a performance, and they are terrified of what will happen when the show is over. Integrating the jester archetype is a journey of finding the profound balance between joy and responsibility, levity and depth. The first step is to infuse joy with purpose. The integrated jester learns that they don't have to choose between being responsible and being playful. They find creative ways to bring their spirit of lightness and fun to their responsibilities. They don't run from the serious aspects of life. They transform them with their unique perspective, making work feel like play and turning duty into a joyful game. Next, they learn to wield their humor with a compassionate heart. The integrated jester's wit is a scalpel, not a bludgeon. They use it precisely to cut through tension and pretense, but never to harm a living being. Their humor is inclusive, aimed at the shared absurdities and struggles of the human condition. They learn to laugh with the world, not at it, using their gift to build bridges of connection and shared understanding. The ultimate act of courage for the jester is learning to take off the mask. The integrated jester finds the strength to be vulnerable, to be serious when the moment calls for it, and to share their own pain as readily as they share their joy. They learn that true connection, the very thing they crave, is impossible without authenticity. They realize they don't have to be on all the time, and that the people who truly love them will love the whole person, sadness and all. The jester, in its highest and wisest form, is a master at exposing what is hidden. It playfully pokes holes in the solemn costumes of our various archetypes, revealing the ego of the ruler, the sentimentality of the lover, and the arrogance of the sage. This uncanny ability to reveal the uncomfortable, often laughable, truth behind our carefully constructed personas is a powerful gift. The jester has opened a door by laughing at our pretenses, and now, we must summon the courage to step through that door and look unflinchingly at the source of those pretenses. We must turn this truth-telling impulse inward and formally meet all the rejected, embarrassing, and unwanted parts of ourselves, the dark side of every character we play. This is the necessary, challenging, and ultimately liberating journey into the darkness. It is the journey of shadow integration. The jester, with its playful irreverence, has danced along the edges of our deepest secrets, pulling at the threads of our carefully constructed personas and revealing the absurdities we try to hide. But laughter can only take us to the door of self-knowledge. To become whole, we must have the courage to stop laughing. Take a deep breath and step through that door. We must descend from the sunlit world of the roles we consciously play into the dim, subterranean landscape of the parts of ourselves we have rejected, denied, and disowned. This is the courageous journey into the realm of the shadow. The concept of the shadow, first articulated by the great psychologist Carl Jung, is one of the most vital and misunderstood ideas in our quest for wholeness. We must begin by being absolutely clear. The shadow is not evil. It is not a demonic entity waiting to possess us. The shadow is, quite simply, everything in ourselves that we are not conscious of. It is the psychological bag we have been dragging behind us our entire lives, filled with all the parts of our personality that our conscious ego found inconvenient, unacceptable, or shameful. Into this bag we stuffed our unacceptable anger, our raw ambition, our vulnerable needs, our wild creativity, our sexuality, any aspect of our full humanity that was criticized or punished by our family, our culture, or our religion when we were young. We created a good and acceptable persona to show the world, and everything else got shoved into the dark. We spend enormous amounts of psychic energy keeping this bag tied shut, pretending it doesn't exist. But denial does not eliminate the shadow, it only makes it autonomous. An unexamined shadow does not go away, it runs our lives from behind the scenes. Its primary method of operation is projection. When we refuse to own a quality in ourselves, we have no choice but to see it and attack it in other people. The man who has repressed his own aggression will see a world full of angry, threatening people, The person who has denied their own ambition will constantly criticize others for being power-hungry. The woman who has disowned her own sensuality will judge other women for being too sexual. The qualities in others that trigger the most intense and irrational emotional reaction in us are often the very qualities we have refused to acknowledge in our own shadow. The world becomes a mirror for the parts of ourselves we refuse to see. And we go through life fighting our own reflection. When left unexamined, the shadow also erupts. Its repressed energy builds up pressure until it bursts forth in uncontrolled outbursts, sudden fits of rage, inexplicable moods, or shocking, out-of-character behavior that leaves us wondering, what just came over me? It is the source of self-sabotage, unconsciously engineering our failures to confirm our deepest negative beliefs about ourselves. The classic cautionary tale of a life destroyed by an unintegrated shadow is the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll is the perfect persona, a respected, intelligent, and morally upright Victorian gentleman. He is the embodiment of a conscious ego that has systematically repressed every instinct it deemed base or undignified. But Jekyll feels incomplete, sterile. He knows something is missing. His fatal mistake is that he tries to achieve purity by separating himself from his dark side. Rather than integrating it, he creates a potion to isolate his shadow, giving it its own body, its own life. And thus, Mr. Hyde is born. Hyde is not an invading demon. He is the sum of all Jekyll's disowned parts, his rage, his primal desires, his freedom from social constraint. By refusing to acknowledge Hyde as a part of himself, and by trying to destroy him, Jekyll only makes him stronger. The story tragically illustrates a profound psychological law that which you repress and deny will eventually gather enough power in the darkness to consume you. Integration is the only path to wholeness. So how do we begin this courageous work? The process of shadow integration is like a deep-sea dive to recover lost treasure. It must be done with patience, courage, and immense self-compassion. We begin by shadow fishing. We learn to pay close attention to our emotional triggers. That person at work who fills you with irrational rage. That celebrity whose lifestyle you find both repulsive and fascinating. These strong reactions are hooks. And if you follow the line, it will often lead you back to a similar, disowned quality within yourself. A powerful way to map the shadow is to revisit the archetypes we have already met and consciously acknowledge their dark sides within us. We must have the courage to own the willful blindness of our inner innocent, the victim mentality of our inner orphan, the manipulative martyrdom of our inner caregiver, the ruthless ambition of our inner warrior, the cold detachment of our inner sage, and the cruel mockery of our inner jester. They are all in there. The goal is not to judge or condemn these figures, but to bring them into the light of consciousness. We can enter into a dialogue with them, asking them questions as if they were real beings. What do you want? What are you afraid of? What gift have you been trying to give me that I have been too afraid to receive? This leads us to the ultimate purpose of shadow work. This is not just an exercise in self-criticism. The goal is to find the gold in the darkness. Our shadow contains not just our flaws, but also our most vital and powerful life-giving energies. Hidden in the dark bag are our raw power, our healthy aggression needed to defend our boundaries, passion, our creativity, our instinct, our connection to the earth. When we integrate our shadow, we don't become bad, we become whole. We reclaim the vast amounts of energy we were wasting on repression. We become more authentic, more grounded, and infinitely more interesting. The integrated warrior reclaims their ferocity. The integrated lover reclaims their raw passion. The integrated creator reclaims their chaotic, untamed imagination. We bring these exiled parts of ourselves home. And in doing so, we become more fully and vibrantly alive. As we venture deeper into this work of owning our projections and integrating our rejected selves, we often discover a particularly powerful and mysterious figure living in the depths of the shadow. It is the archetype of the other. For a man, This is often a personification of the feminine energy. He has disowned his vulnerability, his intuition, his capacity for connection. For a woman, it is often a personification of the masculine energy. She has repressed her ambition, her logical assertiveness, her independence. Our societal and personal judgments about the opposite gender have forced us to project vast parts of our own potential onto them, creating a deep split within the psyche. To confront our most cherished and most reviled fantasies about the other is to confront a core component of our own hidden self. This encounter with the inner opposite, the soul image that lives in our shadow, is the doorway to the next great stage of our journey, the sacred inner marriage of the anima and animus. As we journey through the landscape of the shadow, courageously reclaiming the parts of ourselves we have disowned, we inevitably encounter a figure of singular power and mystery. It is the archetypal image of the inner other, the soul image that lives in our unconscious. For a man, this figure often takes a feminine form. For a woman, a masculine one. Its discovery marks the beginning of one of the most profound and transformative stages of inner work, a journey that moves beyond simple self-improvement into the realm of true psychological alchemy. This is the quest for the sacred inner marriage, the union of the anima and the animus. These terms, also from Carl Jung, describe the unconscious, contrasexual aspects of our psyche. The anima is the unconscious feminine principle that resides within a man's psyche. She is the archetype of relationship, feeling, intuition, creativity, and the connection to the soul's mysteries. She is not a literal woman inside a man, but rather the blueprint of the feminine that he carries within him, shaped by his relationship with his mother and the collective images of womanhood in his culture. The animus is the corresponding masculine principle within a woman's psyche. He is the archetype of logic, reason, focused thought, assertive action, and ambition. He represents her inner capacity for structure, courage, and intellectual clarity, shaped by her experience with her father and cultural images of masculinity. For most of our lives, these powerful inner figures remain unconscious. And when they are unconscious, they are undeveloped and autonomous. A man who has no conscious relationship with his own inner feminine, his anima, does not become more manly. He becomes possessed by her in her most primitive form. He is prone to dark moods, vague feelings of being hurt, irrational emotional outbursts, and a kind of sentimental moodiness that he cannot control or understand. He is at the mercy of his inner feelings because he has never learned to engage with them consciously. Similarly, a woman possessed by her undeveloped animus does not become strong and assertive. Instead, she can become rigid, argumentative, and dogmatic. Her thinking is not her own, but is composed of a series of cold, hard, unexamined opinions and collective assumptions that she wields like a weapon. Her masculine energy manifests not as true, flexible strength, but as a brittle and often judgmental opinionatedness. The most common and powerful way these unconscious figures affect our lives is through the grand and often painful game of projection. When we fall in love, especially when it has that electrifying, magical quality of feeling that we have finally found our other half, we are often not seeing the other person at all. We are projecting our own undeveloped soul image onto them. A man falls in love with his own anima, projected onto a woman. A woman falls in love with her own animus, projected onto a man. We are literally falling in love with a lost part of our own soul. This is the psychological reality behind the myth of finding the one who completes you. We unconsciously seek a partner to carry our undeveloped qualities for us. A man who is cut off from his own emotional life will be irresistibly drawn to a woman of great emotional depth. A woman who is afraid of her own power and assertiveness will often be attracted to a man of great ambition and drive. We are seeking balance, but we are seeking it in the outer world instead of creating it within. This is a magical experience while the projection holds, but it is destined to shatter. Eventually, reality intrudes. we discover that our partner is a real, flawed, complex human being, not the divine carrier of our soul. The man discovers his emotional goddess can also be moody and irrational. The woman discovers her strong, heroic god can also be stubborn and insensitive. This moment of disillusionment is one of the most painful and pivotal in any relationship. It can lead to bitterness, blame, and the end of the affair, sending us off in search of a new person to carry the projection. Or it can be the sacred invitation to begin the true work, the work of withdrawing the projection and finding those missing qualities within ourselves. This is the path of the sacred inner marriage. It begins with the difficult task of taking back our power from others. It means looking at our partners and our relationships with clear eyes, separating who they truly are from the fantasy we have projected onto them. The real work then turns inward. It becomes a conscious dialogue with this inner figure. A man can learn to turn to his anima in his imagination and ask for her guidance. He can ask her, "How do I feel about this situation? What is the relational truth here?" He learns to value his own intuition and emotional responses. A woman can learn to consult her inner animus. She can ask him, "What is the most logical way to approach this problem? How can I act with courage and clarity right now?" She learns to cultivate her own assertive voice and trust her own intellect. The ultimate goal of this process is to consciously develop and integrate these latent qualities into our own personality. A man learns to cultivate his own capacity for relatedness, empathy, and emotional intelligence without losing his masculine strength. A woman learns to develop her own assertive drive, her intellectual focus, and her independence without sacrificing her feminine capacity for nurturing and connection. She doesn't need a man to be her strength. She finds her own. He doesn't need a woman to be his soul. He connects with his own. The perfect symbol for this state of integrated wholeness is the ancient Taoist symbol of the Tai Jiddu, or the yin and yang. The symbol shows us a circle comprised of two flowing, opposite energies. Black and white. They are not at war. They are in a dynamic, harmonieuse dance. Each side flows into the other. And crucially, each side contains a small dot, a seed, of its opposite. The goal is not for yin to become yang, or for a man to become a woman. The goal is for each to acknowledge, honor, and integrate the seed of its opposite to create a balanced and complete whole. This is the sacred inner marriage. It is a state of psychic wholeness, of profound inner balance. When this inner integration begins to take hold, when a man is no longer possessed by his moods, but is in a creative relationship with his anima, and a woman is no longer driven by rigid opinions, but is guided by her wise animus, something remarkable happens. We stop being a house divided against itself. We stop desperately searching for our other half in the outer world because we are becoming whole within. A new center of gravity begins to form within the psyche. This center is not the ego, nor is it the shadow or the soul image. It is a larger, more comprehensive, and more stable organizing principle that holds all of these disparate parts in a harmonious relationship. It is the archetype of wholeness itself, the central point of the entire psychic cosmos, and the ultimate destination of our archetypal journey. This is the emergence of the self, when the sacred inner marriage begins to solidify, when the warring opposites of the psyche cease their endless conflict and begin to dance in a harmonious union. A profound quietude descends upon our inner world. We cease to be a battlefield. A new and unshakable center of gravity forms, a still point in the turning world of our soul. From this new center, we become aware, perhaps for the first time, of a quiet, guiding intelligence that has been there all along, orchestrating the entire journey. This is not the voice of the familiar ego, with its anxieties, its ambitions, and its endless chatter. This is something deeper, vaster, and wiser. This is the emergence of the supreme archetype, the central sun around which all other archetypes revolve like planets, This is the archetype of wholeness itself. The self. To understand the self, we must first make a critical distinction. In our common language, we use self and ego interchangeably. But in the landscape of the soul, they are vastly different. The ego is the center of our conscious mind. It is our sense of I, our personality, the part of us that navigates daily life, makes plans, and experiences the world. The ego is like the captain of a ship, standing on the bridge, looking out at the sea. The self, as defined by Carl Jung, is the center of the total psyche, encompassing both the conscious ego and the vast, mysterious ocean of the unconscious. The self is the captain, the crew, the ship, the sea, and the guiding stars all at once. It is the supreme, ordering intelligence of our entire being, the divine blueprint for our unique and total personality, the ultimate goal of the psychological and spiritual journey. A process Jung called individuation is to shift the center of our personality from the small, fragile ego to the vast, indestructible self. The ego's proper role is not to be a king, but to become a conscious and loyal servant to the wisdom of the self. The self is the ultimate inner guide. It is the still, small voice within that is the source of our truest intuitions and our deepest sense of purpose. While the other archetypes each have their own agendas, the warrior wants to win. The lover wants to connect. The sage wants to know the self is the wise conductor of the entire orchestra. It knows when to bring forward the courage of the warrior, when to allow the passion of the lover to flow, and when to heed the wisdom of the sage. It holds all these partial energies in a harmonious balance, ensuring that we can access the right archetype at the right time. Living in service to the self means we are no longer jerked around by the conflicting demands of our inner characters. We are guided by a central wisdom that knows the entire musical score of our life. The great myths of humanity are filled with stories of this quest for the self. None more poignant than the legend of the Holy Grail. The story begins with a kingdom, Camelot, that has fallen into a wasteland. The land is barren and its people are suffering because their king is wounded and impotent. This is a powerful metaphor for a psyche ruled by a wounded ego, out of touch with its life-giving, unconscious depths. The Knights of the Round Table, representing the various functions of the ego, set out on a grand quest to find the one object that can heal the king and the land, the Holy Grail. They believe it to be a physical cup, an external object of immense power. This represents the ego's typical approach, seeking wholeness and salvation as something outside of itself, something to be achieved, won, or possessed. The knights who search with brute force or worldly pride all fail. The Grail is ultimately revealed not to those with the strongest sword arm, but to the one with the purest heart, the one who has undertaken the deepest inner journey. The Grail itself, a sacred vessel containing the divine, is a perfect symbol for the self. It is the inner source of spiritual nourishment, healing, and grace. The quest for the Grail is the story of the ego's long and difficult journey to find the divine center within its own soul. The ultimate lesson is that the treasure we seek in the outer world can only be found by turning inward and becoming worthy of it. Healing comes not from possessing the Grail, but from realizing its presence within our own being. Because the self is an archetype of the deep unconscious, it rarely speaks to the ego in plain language. Instead, it communicates through symbols, especially in dreams, visions, and moments of creative inspiration. One of its most common symbols is the mandala, a Sanskrit word meaning sacred circle. These intricate circular designs, often with a fourfold structure at their center, are spontaneous self-portraits of the psyche, representing its drive toward wholeness, balance, and centeredness. The number 4 itself is a powerful symbol of the self, representing a grounded, earthly wholeness. As seen in the 4 seasons, the 4 cardinal directions, and the four classical elements. In our dreams, the self may appear as a figure of supreme wisdom and authority, a revered king or queen, a wise old man or woman, a spiritual guru, or a divine being. These figures represent the guiding, central intelligence of the psyche, offering its counsel to the conscious ego. What does it feel like to begin living from this center? It is a gradual but profound shift in our entire experience of life. Firstly, a deep sense of purpose and meaning begins to emerge. Life no longer feels like a series of chaotic, random events. We begin to perceive an underlying narrative, a meaningful direction, as if our life were a story being guided by a wise author. Secondly, we develop a greater capacity for acceptance and a sense of flow. We still face challenges and hardships, but we stop fighting reality so much. There is a growing trust that even difficult experiences are part of our journey toward wholeness. Lessons orchestrated by the self for our own growth. The most profound shift is a softening of the hard boundaries of the ego. Our small, personal story begins to feel connected to a much larger story. We feel a deeper kinship with other people, with nature, and with the cosmos itself. The feeling of being a lonely, isolated individual gives way to the experience of being a unique and essential wave in the vast ocean of being. We are less driven by the ego's need for approval and status, and more nourished by this quiet, powerful connection to a greater whole. We have found the inner kingdom, and its ruler is wise, benevolent, and eternal. But if the self is this vast, silent, and mysterious center of our being, how does it communicate with the small, busy, conscious ego, which is so often distracted by the noise of the outer world? The self does not send text messages or emails. It does not issue loud commands. It speaks a more subtle, elegant, and magical language. It orchestrates events, both in our inner world of thoughts and dreams and in our outer world of people and circumstances, arranging them into meaningful patterns that the attentive ego can learn to recognize. This mysterious, non-causal connecting principle, this whispered language of the universe, through which the self guides our path, is the phenomenon known as synchronicity. The self, the wise and silent center of our being, does not shout its instructions from a megaphone. It does not hand the ego a 5-year plan. Instead, it whispers. It paints messages onto the canvas of our daily lives, communicates through the language of dreams, and nudges us forward with the subtle pull of intuition. But its most startling and direct method of communication is a phenomenon that pierces the veil of ordinary reality. Moments when the inner world of our thoughts and feelings aligns perfectly and mysteriously with the outer world of events. This is the magical language of the self. This is the language of synchronicity. You have almost certainly experienced it. You're thinking of an old friend you haven't spoken to in years. And suddenly, the phone rings. And it's them. You're wrestling with a difficult life question. And you open a book at random. And the exact sentence you need to read leaps off the page. You see a particular, unusual animal 3 times in one day just after making a major life decision. These are not mere coincidences. They are synchronicities. The term, coined by Carl Jung, describes these meaningful coincidences. Moments when 2 or more seemingly unrelated events are linked not by a linear chain of cause and effect, but by a shared meaning. The key word is meaning. The difference between a random coincidence and a synchronicity lies in the powerful feeling of personal significance it evokes in the observer. It carries a numinous charge, a shiver of awe that tells you something more is going on here. It feels like a wink from the universe, a brief glimpse behind the curtain of reality, revealing that the inner world of your psyche and the outer world of material events are not separate at all, but are intimately and mysteriously intertwined. Synchronicity is the evidence that we are participating in a conversation with a hidden intelligence, a consciousness woven into the fabric of the cosmos. Perhaps the most beloved modern story of a life guided by synchronicity is Paulo Coelho's classic, The Alchemist, The Journey of the Shepherd Boy. Santiago, in search of his treasure, is a perfect allegory for the soul's journey of individuation. Guided by the self, his quest is called his personal legend, and he is told that when you truly want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. This conspiracy does not unfold through a clear map, but through a series of omens, which is the book's word for synchronicities. He is guided by everything from the sudden flight of two hawks to chance encounters with mysterious strangers like the old King Melchizedek, to words he overhears in the marketplace. His entire journey is a lesson in learning to read and trust this language of the world when he pays attention to the omens and has the courage to follow them, even when they seem illogical. Doors open, and his path unfolds before him. When he succumbs to fear or doubt and ignores the signs, he loses his way and faces setbacks. The story teaches that the self is always providing guidance, but we must have the faith and awareness to recognize and act on it. The ultimate synchronicity of the story, of course, is that the treasure was buried back where he started, under a sycamore tree in the ruins of an old church. The true treasure was not the gold, but the transformation of Santiago himself, the wisdom and character he gained by learning to listen to the language of his own heart and the universe. So how do we cultivate this conversation in our own lives? How do we learn to hear these whispers from the self? The first and most important step is to cultivate presence. The universe is constantly speaking, but our minds are often too noisy and distracted to listen. Through practices like mindfulness, meditation, and simply spending quiet time in nature, we can lower the volume of our inner chatter, creating the mental space necessary to notice the subtle patterns and connections forming around us. Keeping a journal can be an invaluable tool, allowing us to track these strange coincidences over time and see the larger themes and messages that emerge. Next, we must learn to pay attention to repetition. The self will often repeat a message to make sure we get it. Notice recurring symbols, numbers, animals, or even songs that seem to show up in your life with unusual frequency, especially during a time of major change or questioning. This repetition is the universe knocking a little louder on the door of your awareness. The ultimate arbiter of whether a coincidence is a true synchronicity, however, is your own intuitive response. A real synchronicity lands with a feeling. It has a weight, a resonance, a quality of the uncanny that sends a shiver down your spine. It feels significant. Learn to trust that feeling. Your intuition is the receiver that is tuned to the frequency of the self. We must also be careful not to force meaning onto every little thing. The mind's ego loves to create patterns, and we can easily fall into the trap of overanalyzing every detail of our lives. The meaning of a true synchronicity should feel natural, like a sudden moment of clarity or a gentle click of understanding. It doesn't need to be solved like a riddle. It needs to be received like a gift. Often, its full meaning only becomes clear in hindsight. These events are green lights from the self, powerful confirmations that we are in alignment with our true path. When you are living authentically, making choices that honor your soul's purpose, you will likely find that the frequency of synchronicities in your life increases dramatically. It creates a feeling of being in the flow, of being carried by a powerful and benevolent current, with signs appearing at just the right moment to guide your way. This experience of being in a receptive dialogue with the universe is profound, but it inevitably raises a new question. Can we move beyond being a passive observer of these signs and become an active participant in their creation? Can we learn to consciously work with the very principles that create synchronicity, to not just follow the path, but to help pave it? This desire to move from reception to conscious co-creation, to align our own energy and intention with the universe to manifest a desired reality, leads us directly to the principles of one of the most popular and often misunderstood spiritual concepts of our time. It is time to explore the law of attraction, but not as a simple tool for getting what you want, but through the rich, nuanced, and powerful lens of the archetypes we have come to know. The experience of synchronicity reveals a profound truth: our inner world and the outer world are in constant dialogue. We are not separate from the universe, but participants in a cosmic conversation. This realization inevitably leads us to a popular and powerful concept known as the law of attraction. The idea that we can consciously influence this conversation to shape our reality. But here we encounter a great paradox. Why does this law seem to work so brilliantly for some, delivering their desires with magical precision, while for others, it remains a frustrating exercise in wishful thinking, leaving them feeling more disappointed than empowered? The answer lies in moving beyond the superficial understanding of this law and exploring it through the deep and potent lens of the archetypes. The popular version of the law of attraction suggests that if you think positive thoughts, repeat affirmations, and visualize your desires, you will attract them. This is not untrue, but it is a dangerously incomplete picture. It is like believing that painting a racing stripe on a car will make its engine more powerful. The universe does not respond to our fleeting positive thoughts when our deep, underlying state of being is vibrating with fear, doubt, and unworthiness. The deeper truth is not that you attract what you want. It is that you attract what you are. This is the law of resonance. Imagine striking a tuning fork that is tuned to the note of C. Across the room, the strings of a piano and a guitar that are also tuned to the note of C will begin to gently vibrate in sympathy. The strings tuned to G or F sharp will remain silent. Our being, the sum total of our conscious and, more importantly, our unconscious beliefs, emotions, and archetypal patterns, is our tuning fork. We are constantly broadcasting a vibrational frequency into the universe. And the universe, like a cosmic piano, can only resonate with and reflect back to us the notes we are broadcasting. This is where the archetypes become the key to unlocking the true power of manifestation. The archetypes we embody are the primary frequencies we broadcast. Each archetype has a unique energetic signature. The ruler broadcasts a frequency of sovereignty, order, and responsibility. The creator sends out a signal of innovation, imagination, and potential. The lover resonates with passion, connection, and beauty. The orphan, however, vibrates with an energy of lack, abandonment, and the feeling that there is never enough. The problem for most people is that there is a profound disconnect between the desire of their conscious ego and the dominant frequency of their unconscious archetype. Your conscious mind may be affirming, "I am wealthy and abundant." But if your life is being run by the unconscious energy of the orphan, your soul is constantly broadcasting the frequency of "I am poor and I will be abandoned." The universe, which responds to the deeper, more powerful signal, faithfully delivers more experiences of lack to match your orphan's vibration. Let us make this concrete. Imagine a man who desperately wants to attract a loving, committed relationship. He makes a vision board with pictures of happy couples and recites affirmations about being worthy of love. This is the desire of his ego. However, his dominant, unconscious archetype is the seeker in its shadow form, the restless wanderer who is terrified of being trapped and fears commitment above all else. His vibrational output, the frequency he is one of emotional unavailability and a deep need for escape. The universe, responding to this powerful seeker frequency, will consistently attract partners who are also unavailable for commitment, or it will orchestrate situations where the relationship ends just as it starts to get serious, perfectly matching his unconscious fear of being fenced in. He is trying to attract a lover's reality with a seeker's energy, and it will never work. True manifestation, then, is an act of conscious archetypal embodiment. It is not faking it till you make it, but being it until you become it. The first step is to identify your desire, and then to identify the archetype that holds the energetic key to that desire. If you want to build a successful business, you must learn to embody the integrated ruler. If you want to create a work of art, you must invoke the Creator. If you want deep intimacy, you must embody the lover. The work is to begin thinking, feeling, and acting as if you were already that archetype. You can ask yourself throughout the day, how would the wise ruler handle this financial decision? How would the passionate lover experience this simple meal? How would the courageous warrior approach this difficult conversation? By consciously choosing to act from the energy of the desired archetype, you begin to change your vibrational frequency. You are retuning your entire being. This process inevitably leads us back to the shadow. The shadow aspects of our archetypes are the most powerful forms of static, the counter vibrations that cancel out our conscious intentions. The victim mentality of the orphan will always sabotage the ruler's attempts to create sovereignty. The perfectionism of the creator will block the flow of innovation. The martyrdom of the caregiver will repel the very abundance and support it craves. Therefore, the most potent manifestation work we can do is often shadow work. When we integrate the needy, victimized part of the orphan, we clear the frequency of lack from our being. When we heal the perfectionist creator, we open the channel to effortless creation. When we face our fear of commitment as the seeker, we finally make space for the lover to enter. This is the true secret. The law of attraction is not a cosmic vending machine where positive thoughts are the currency. It is a mirror reflecting our deepest state of being. To change the reflection, we must change ourselves. By understanding the archetypal energies that are currently running our lives, by consciously choosing to embody the archetypes that align with our deepest desires, and by bravely integrating the shadows that block our path, we move from being a passive wisher to a powerful, conscious co-creator. We stop hoping the world will give us what we want and start becoming the person who is an energetic match for the life we are called to live. The theory is powerful, but true transformation requires action. Knowing you must embody the ruler is one thing, doing it is another. How, in our daily lives, can we practically invoke these energies, dialogue with these inner figures, and heal these shadows? This question of practical application, of turning this deep psychological knowledge into a living, breathing practice, leads us to our next step. It is time to explore the specific rituals, meditations, and daily exercises that can help us integrate these powerful archetypes into our very bones. We have journeyed deep into the theory of the archetypes. We have mapped the territories of our inner world. And we have brought the powerful concept of manifestation into a new and clearer light. But knowledge alone, without action, is merely a well-drawn map of a treasure that is never sought. To bring this wisdom to life, to truly dialogue with these inner guides and consciously shape our reality, we must move from theory to practice. We must engage in the sacred technologies of the soul. We need rituals and daily practices that build a bridge between our conscious intentions and the vast, powerful world of the unconscious. The word ritual may sound archaic or overly ceremonial, but in its essence, a ritual is simply an action performed with intention. It is a way of carving out a sacred time and space from the chaotic flow of daily life. A way of signaling to our deepest self, I am here. I am listening. I am ready to work. Whether it is a simple 5-minute morning routine or a more elaborate practice, ritual is the container we create to hold our transformative work. Just as a knight of old would not simply walk onto a battlefield without first polishing his armor and sharpening his sword, we too must prepare ourselves for the inner work of becoming whole. These practices are that preparation. One of the simplest and most profound practices is archetypal journaling. This is more than just recording the events of your day. It is about entering into a direct dialogue with the figures inside you. The process is simple. Take a blank page and a pen. At the top, write down a question or a problem you are facing. Then, instead of trying to answer it with your logical ego mind, invite a specific archetype to speak. You might write, "A message for me from my inner sage," or "Guidance from my inner warrior." Then, let your hand move. Write whatever comes, without judgment or censorship. You will be astonished at the wisdom that flows through. Feeling lost or bored with your life? Ask your inner seeker. What is the next great adventure you want to take me on? Facing a financial decision that fills you with anxiety? Ask your inner ruler. What is the most sovereign and responsible choice for the long-term prosperity of my kingdom? Feeling heartbroken or disconnected? Ask your inner lover. What beauty are you trying to show me in this moment? How can I connect more deeply with myself? This practice can also be a powerful tool for shadow integration. You can dialogue with the parts of you that you fear. Writing to the part of me that feels like a victim, or to my inner critic, and then asking with compassion, what are you afraid of? What do you need from me? This practice makes the archetypes real, accessible, and practical guides in your daily life. Our next practice is meditation and visualization, which is about moving from thinking to feeling, from dialogue to embodiment. Find a quiet space where you will not be disturbed. Close your eyes and take several deep breaths, settling your body and mind. Then, call to mind the archetype whose energy you wish to cultivate. To invoke the warrior, feel your spine straighten and a pillar of strength forming around you. Feel your focus sharpening like a blade. Visualize a shield of golden light protecting your energy field. To embody the creator, bring your attention to your hands and your heart. Imagine a channel of inspiration opening from the crown of your head, flooding your being with new ideas and a joyful urgency to make something new. To connect with the sage, feel your mind becoming as clear and vast as a blue sky. Allow thoughts to float by like clouds, without attachment, resting in a state of serene, objective awareness. This is not about forcing a feeling, but about inviting an energetic state. By repeatedly visiting these states in meditation, you train your nervous system to recognize them, making it easier to access their qualities in your waking life. To anchor this inner work in the physical world, you can create a personal altar. An altar is simply a beautiful, dedicated space that serves as a physical reflection of your spiritual intentions. It need not be religious. It can be a small corner of a bookshelf, a windowsill, or a bedside table. The power of an altar lies in the symbolic objects you place upon it. Choose items that resonate with the archetypal energies you are working with. For the ruler, you might place a key to symbolize your sovereignty over your life, or a special coin to represent prosperity. For the lover, a fresh flower, a beautiful stone, or a scented candle. For the magician, a quartz crystal or a book of wisdom. For the creator, a blank notebook and a favorite pen. Every time you see your altar, it will serve as a gentle, non-verbal reminder of your intentions and your connection to the deep, archetypal world within. For those wishing to go deeper, there is a powerful technique developed by Carl Jung called active imagination. This is a form of waking dream, a direct and conscious engagement with the figures of the unconscious. In a light meditative state, you might visualize yourself walking down a path into a forest or descending a staircase into a cave. You then set the intention to meet a specific archetype. Allow a figure to emerge from the landscape of your mind. Unlike a simple visualization, where you control the entire scene, in active imagination, you allow this figure its own autonomy. You ask it questions, and then you patiently listen for its response, which may be surprising and not at all what your ego would expect. It may speak in words, show you an image, or hand you a symbolic object. This is a profound method for direct communication with the psyche, but it requires courage and a stable ego. It is often wise to begin by seeking to meet benevolent figures like the sage or the creator before attempting to dialogue with more challenging shadow figures. These practices are not chores. They are acts of devotion to your own wholeness. An artist does not resent the time spent mixing her paints or cleaning her brushes. She knows it is an essential part of the creative act. In the same way, these rituals are how we mix the colors of our soul, how we tune our energetic instrument, and how we prepare the canvas for the masterpiece that is our life. As you begin to engage in these practices regularly, something remarkable will happen. You will start to notice that certain archetypes speak to you more loudly than others. You might find that your journaling is constantly filled with the voice of your inner seeker, or that you feel most alive and at home when meditating on the energy of the caregiver. This natural resonance, this feeling of coming home to a particular archetypal energy, is not an accident. It is your soul revealing its core design. It is the first clue to answering one of the most fundamental human questions: what is my purpose? This discovery of your own unique archetypal signature is the bridge that leads us to our next exploration, finding your life's purpose through understanding your dominant archetype. We have walked a long and winding path through the inner landscape of the soul. We have met the gatekeepers and the outcasts, the king and the warrior, the magician and the lover. We have named these powerful forces, these aunts in energy, the archetypes. But the purpose of this journey was never simply to create a catalog of your inner characters, to merely identify the masks you wear or the shadows you cast. Identification is only the first step. The true, great work, the magnum opus of the soul, is the integration of these forces. It is a process the ancient alchemists knew as the hero's gamos, the sacred marriage. It is the art of bringing all the disparate parts of yourself into a harmonious, functioning, and magnificent whole. Imagine your consciousness as a great kingdom. For too long, perhaps, this kingdom has been in disarray. The warrior has been in charge, making every decision a battle, turning every relationship into a conquest. Or maybe the orphan has sat on the throne, convinced the kingdom is barren and helpless, unable to see the riches all around. The other archetypes have been locked in dungeons, or exiled to the distant forests of the unconscious. The magician's wisdom goes unheard. The lover's plea for connection is ignored. This is a kingdom at war with itself. The act of integration is like King Arthur creating the Round Table. It is a declaration that every knight, every archetype, has a voice and a value. Arthur, the conscious self, sits at the head, but he knows he cannot rule wisely without the counsel of all his knights. Sir Lancelot, the passionate lover and peerless warrior, must have his seat. Sir Galahad, the pure and innocent fool, must have his. Merlin, the wise magician who sees the hidden patterns, must be present. But crucially, even Mordred, the treacherous shadow, the embodiment of our envy and resentment, I must also be given a place at the table. To banish Mordred is not to destroy him. It is to ensure he will attack the kingdom from the outside, to invite him to the table, to listen to his grievances, to understand his wounds, is to neutralize his destructive power and integrate his strength. You do not have to let Mordred rule the kingdom, but you must let him speak. This is the radical act of self-acceptance. You look upon the totality of who you are, the brilliant and the broken, the noble and the needy, and you say, you all belong. You are all part of this kingdom. You all have a seat at my table. This alchemical marriage is not a one-time event, but a continuous, dynamic dance of balance. It is learning to allow the right archetype to take the lead in the right situation. Guided by the wisdom of the conscious self, when faced with a complex problem, you allow the magician to step forward. When your family needs protection, the warrior stands guard. When it is time for intimacy and connection, the lover opens the heart. When you need to learn a new skill, the innocent student embraces not knowing with joy. The goal is not to become one single, static thing, but to become a fluid, adaptable, and whole human being, capable of responding to the full spectrum of life, with the full spectrum of your inner resources. When this inner council is assembled, when the kingdom is no longer at war with itself, a deep quiet falls over the land. The constant noise of inner conflict subsides, and it is only in this profound silence, this peace born of integration, that you can finally begin to hear a new voice, Not the clamor of the knights at the table, but a whisper from the very center of the throne itself. This is the voice of your true inner guide. Having gathered the court and brokered peace within the kingdom, we now approach the final mystery. We approach the center. For the inner guide we seek is not just another archetype, not another knight to be invited to the table. The guide is the emergent voice of the whole, the wisdom that arises from the complete and harmonious integration of all your parts. This is the voice of what Carl Jung called the self, the transcendent center of the psyche, the totality of who you are and who you are meant to become. The ego, the I we think of as ourselves, is merely the king of the kingdom. The self is the entire kingdom and the divine intelligence that dreamed it into being. Meeting this guide is not like meeting a person. It is more like discovering a sacred space within. Imagine your life's journey as the act of walking a great, ancien labyrinthe. As you walk its winding paths, you encounter all the archetypes. You meet the roaring minotaur in the dark corridors, your shadow. You are aided by a wise woman with a thread, your anima or animus. You get lost. You feel despair. You find courage. For most of the journey, you believe the goal is to slay the monster and escape the maze. But the true purpose of the labyrinth is not to escape it, but to find its center. And when, after all your trials, you finally arrive, you do not find an exit. You find a still, clear pool of water under an open sky. This pool is the self. This is your inner guide. It does not speak in loud commands. It does not offer stock tips or predict the future. Its language is silence, intuition, dreams, and synchronicity. When you gaze into the pool, you see the reflection of the stars above, the infinite pattern of the cosmos. You see the reflection of the entire labyrinth. And for the first time, you understand its design. You see where you have been and the path that led you here. The voice of the guide is this moment of profound clarity. It is the gut feeling that says, "This way." It is the sudden insight that reframes a problem. It is the meaningful coincidence that confirms you are on the right path. It is the deep, quiet knowing that resonates in your very bones. To hear this voice, to consult this guide, requires that you learn to quiet the noise of the ego and the demands of the unintegrated archetypes. The king must learn to stop talking and simply listen. It requires trust. It requires a willingness to enter the labyrinth of your own being, to face the monsters within, and to keep walking even when you feel lost. Your guide does not shout directions from the outside. It is the very intelligence of the path itself, revealed to you when you are ready to perceive it. It has been with you all along. In every twist and every turn, in every challenge and every triumph, the journey through the archetypes was the necessary pilgrimage to arrive at its center, to quiet your mind enough to finally see the still water, and to recognize the wisdom reflected there as your very own. And so, our journey through the inner world concludes. But the great adventure of your life is just beginning. We started by acknowledging that we are more than we seem, that beneath the surface of our daily lives lies a hidden landscape teeming with powerful, ancient energies. We met the persona, the mask we show the world, and dared to look behind it at the feared and rejected shadow. We explored the sacred inner marriage of our masculine and feminine halves, and we gave names to the archetypes that govern our actions: the king, the lover, the magician, the warrior. We have learned that the goal is not to vanquish some and enthrone others, but to assemble them all at the round table of the psyche, creating a balanced and integrated self. Finally, we walked the labyrinth to its center, to discover our truest inner guide, the still, silent, all-knowing voice of the self. The core message is this: you are a living, breathing mythology. Your life is not a random series of events, but a sacred story, a hero's journey. You contain within you a pantheon of gods and goddesses, of heroes and monsters. You are not a single, static person. You are a dynamic constellation of infinite possibility. The great work of your life is to become a conscious and compassionate ruler of this inner kingdom. It is to learn the art of inner alchemy, transforming the lead of your wounds and fears into the gold of wisdom and wholeness. Your inner guide is not some external spirit you must channel. It is your own deepest, wisest self, waiting patiently for you to quiet down enough to listen. This, therefore, is not an ending. It is a commencement. It is an invitation to begin a conscious, lifelong conversation with the deepest parts of your being. As you leave this experience, take one small, simple action. Tonight, before you sleep, find a quiet moment. Close your eyes. Ask a question of your inner world. Do not demand an answer in words. Simply pose the question to the silence. And then listen. Listen with your whole body. When you wake, perhaps you will remember a dream. Write it down. No matter how strange, as you go about your day tomorrow, notice the small coincidences, the moments of synchronicity, the unexpected gut feelings. The conversation has already begun. The guide is already speaking. The myth is being written. By you. For you. Through you. The key to this magical, meaningful life is not to find yourself. It is to bravely and beautifully create yourself.